roots or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. One sec.
Almost like it's a sense of entitlement, and when they get a little pushback, they Pikachu face.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody called me a Harry Potter glasses the other day.
The fuck? I have the trademark on that one. You can't do that. That's trademark infringement. You're infringing my trademark.
I know.
Yeah, that's gonna get you. That's gonna get you a lawsuit.
I mean, my glasses are way less circular than yours.
Yeah, but my arguments are way more circular than yours.
Ayo, get that power strip out.
Let's go. Hey, how's it coming through on YouTube, gang? Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. Is the audio good? Could it be better? Just let me know.
Audio looks good on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't think that we have any viewers yet, by the way, on YouTube.
That's fine.
Like, nope, none. The actual image on YouTube is not centered. I would move it slightly to the left, and then the same I would do on TikTok as well, if you can.
Like this?
Wrong way.
Fuck. Maybe I should. Maybe the way to do this is. Can I just move all this shit together, like all at once? Yeah. Hold on.
Oh, by the way, you should put the actual link in the TikTok background, or in the background in general, I guess. The way that Justin has it in the recent videos.
I don't know how the fuck. Oh yeah, sure, I could do that. Yeah.
So it's tinyurl. For everybody watching and for Ian, it's tinyurl.com/uaguest.
Wait, so is it good now? What does it look like now?
Yeah, it looks fine now.
Good. Acceptable. But
so what does Justin have typically in the description? I think he typically has.
Oh yeah, I have the description. Good to go.
Or sorry, not the description. The like the logo behind it. It just says. Yeah, it's just join as guest and then tinyurl.com/uaguest is what it usually has. Where the purple is.
Bro, I think this guy is so funny. This like redeemed righteous guy in the comment section. This is like the exact like thing that makes Christianity unlikely, right? Like if the religion were true, you would expect the people to turn out to not be like complete scumbags.
Well, some women are attracted to brains or men. Well, turns out most women are attracted to men, statistically. Also, absolutely, some women are attracted to brains. In principle, that's why my wife married me, I think.
In principle.
I mean, like, who knows? Who really knows? She could be lying to me this whole time.
That's true. Have you ever thought about the possibility that you're just like a brain in a vat?
I could be. I could also just be a body in a vat.
True.
Ever thought about that? Checkmate, atheists.
That would be.
I just think a Crane from Ninja Turtles, brain in a vat, body somewhere else.
Yeah, so I don't get that reference because my mom didn't let me watch Ninja Turtles because it was too violent.
Yeah, I think Ninja Turtles is a bit past my time.
You're too much of a youngin'.
Yeah. Low key.
By the way, still need to put the link in the little purple. You're working on that?
Yeah. Fuck. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I am. I am though.
Is that like a? That's just like a text box, right? It's not like an image that you have to edit.
It is like an image that I have to edit.
I think Justin just has a text box.
Yeah, I feel like that should be doable. If I could just like add sources and then add.
So you know what you could do? You could open up. Actually, you know what? I can handle this for you.
Yep.
You can open up a video from the other thing, screen cap the text box, and then just save it.
What the fuck are we doing here, man?
Being really, really bad at this, but I got you.
Yeah, that's like, okay, you know what?
No, we got this. Easy peasy.
Yeah, I think I will do that. That's like,
hold on,
I feel
got
like
it for
that's
you.
just like objectively really funny.
I'm sending it to you. There you go. That's what we want. Just, save it, paste it in. We got this.
Well, you did that really quickly.
Yeah, I just screen capped it.
Okay. Yeah, let me hit that into my downloads. And then for my downloads,
we got this, guys. We're doing all right. Justin is usually our go-to guy on. You know that bit? Is it from one of the Spider-Man movies where like his friend, whose name I don't remember, is like, "Yeah, I can be your guy on the computer." Well, Justin was our guy on the computer. What did you do?
Oh wait, I actually didn't do anything. Okay, wait, it wasn't that bad. Okay, hold on. I thought I just like completely ruined it. 1 sec.
Human evolution took less time than this. That absolutely true. Oh, where'd it go? It's too small.
What the dickens, dude? What the fuck?
Wait, where'd the rest of the thing go?
That's
just
what I'm
overlay.
saying.
Just put it on top of the call in to disagree. Just put it on top of that.
I'm trying to even. Oh my god, this is not going well. Hold on, bro. We gotta edit this or something. Okay, wait.
Wait,
so
is it the image that's the issue? Just overlay the white thing I sent you. Just drag it. Just put it on top.
Yeah, well, but that's what I'm trying to figure out how to add it on Streamlabs.
Oh, you're on Streamlabs. That's why.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, isn't there a way to like add image or something?
Yeah. In principle, yeah.
People are probably like, why aren't they doing debates? Why are they just having tech issues? Guy in the chair. That's what it is. The guy in the chair.
Yeah, I'm like the CEO.
No, I think Justin said that he can't be here for a reason that I don't remember.
It's because he has another family. He doesn't love us.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's the secret family.
Wait, okay, hold on, because oh my god, wait, I'm cooking. Call me Chef Boyardee. I'm fucking cooking.
Oh, there we go. You got it. Just make it a perfect.
Fuck
Bingo.
yeah.
Beautiful.
It's the perfect amount of grainy. Let's fucking go.
The perfect amount of grainy. Look, we don't need this 1080p 4K bullshit.
Let's go.
We just need the link.
Let's put a W Ian in the chat.
No.
Yeah, let's get a W for Ian.
Don't applaud me for that.
Also, so I think that this is probably fine. I think we're good to go.
But then on TikTok.
No, on TikTok it's fine.
Are you sure?
Justin's been doing it with TikTok, yeah, and it just hasn't been an issue.
On my phone it's like way far to the left.
That's what mine looks like.
Yeah, I'd maybe shoot it to the.
It's pretty central on mine.
Damn. I mean, it's.
Do you have an iPhone?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that would explain it. Yeah, I would just make the whole thing smaller.
Okay.
Just make the like just on the TikTok live studio, you can just shrink the whole thing and just center it. Did y'all just start? Yeah, we just started. We just actually I need to send a notification on my Discord.
Me too. Okay, wait. When I do that, how does it look?
It's fine. It's fine on my end.
Oh, wait, and then I have to add myself up. Look at that.
Look at that. All right, we're good to go. We don't even have any guests, so it doesn't even matter that we're late.
True.
I don't know where everybody is, but
True.
if you guys want to join and join in on the discussion as you do, if you want to debate, if you want to think that, if you want to prove that your God is real, maybe you are a Christian or maybe you're a Muslim or a Jew or a Hindu or whatever. If you want to prove your God, go to tinyurl.com/UAGuess. I promise it's not a virus. We just need a link so that you can join with the three of us because that's how it works.
Yeah. You've been using Video Ninja, right, for your streams?
Yeah. It doesn't work very well, but yeah.
Does that go? Oh, it doesn't work very well?
The video is always finicky, so I just don't worry about it. I usually just bring on the voice. But if we can bring their video on, we should. Somehow Justin makes it work.
Yeah. I thought, because I could have sworn that the way Justin did it was like, I think Justin does it the way that I'm doing it right now. So I'm pretty sure Justin does it through Streamlabs or like some streaming thing. But Celine, thank you so much for the heart me. Study of Self, thank you so much for the heart me. I appreciate that.
So
Yeah.
King Almighty says, Ian, you have already been proven wrong. I see you run the other day on Q-Top's live.
What? When?
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Wow. Do you? I bet this guy really thought Q-Top was cooking when he denied the existence of if statements.
Somebody said that I also lost a Q-Top
Yeah, of course.
the other day.
Well, Q-Top was cooking in a microwave that was unplugged.
Bro cooks with forks in the microwave. Like, oh, we have a guest. Lovely.
How do we do? How does one? Hey, what's up? How's it going?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Doing
We're
well.
doing all right.
Yeah. What religion are you?
I'm Muslim actually.
Sure.
Hold on, I don't know if they're actually in the...
Oh,
they're hearable.
true.
You got to do the thing.
I do. Wait. Wait,
Yeah,
can
one
you-
sec.
can
Give us
everyone
just
still see
one moment there,
the
bud.
TikTok.
I can see it. I'm watching it right now.
Okay, cool. That's fine. I just can't see it on mine, but that's okay. It's okay. Yeah, let me go.
Can you not see the
ahead.
TikTok?
Oh, I can see on my phone. It's complicated. Don't worry about it. It would be a lot to explain, but I guess I have like a moment, so maybe I will explain it. Sometimes my TikTok, because I run it through Live Studio, sometimes my TikTok just like pops into oblivion. But like the stream is still going. It's just that I can't see it, and it pops. It popped into oblivion. So.
Sure, totally understandable.
Yep. And then, okay, sure. So I'm going here, and then I'm going here, and then I'm going like this, and then I'm
Copying
doing,
and pasting, and then you're pasting, and then...
Yep. And then we got.
And he's here!
Hey,
Let's make
look
sure
at
that the audio is coming through.
Hey, hey, how's it going? How old are you?
I'm 19 actually.
Sure.
Audio seems clear on TikTok. Let me just double check on YouTube, but I think that we're good.
So I would like to ask you a question. Do
Seems
you know
okay.
these historians called Isaac Newton, Johannes Kepler, Blaise Pascal,
Pascal.
Michael?
Blaise Pascal?
Yeah, Pascal.
Yeah.
These are not
Michael.
historians.
Yeah.
Historian scientists, historical scientists.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these all scientists believe in God and said that they believe in God, and they're like very big in the scientific world. So what would you think about that when big scientists known to man that created all of these scientific theories, why would they believe
So,
God? You wouldn't believe in God.
I will have you know, Isaac Newton was only 5'6". He was not a big scientist. He did say that he will stand on the shoulders of giants. Everyone was a giant to Isaac Newton. Checkmate, atheists.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that this is like a bad epistemic method, right? Like we shouldn't be forming our beliefs based on what like scientists have to say about fields that are not their own, right? Like you should listen to physicists in terms of physics, you should listen to geologists in terms of geology. I'm not going to listen to like a physicist tell me about like metaphysics.
Hey.
I'll listen to the argument, right? I'll engage with the argument. I want to hear the logic. But just because a
Yeah.
physicist believes like some metaphysical claim doesn't make that metaphysical claim true.
Okay, that's true. That's true. Okay, another point I want to make in Islam, how can you tell me this isn't from divine source? For example, iron has mentioned in the Quran by saying that it has come from the heavens, from the space, and science proves that iron has came from the outer space, not from this earth. How can you prove that?
I mean, that's not true. Most of the iron on Earth formed with the Earth.
But it came from space.
What do you mean it
It
came from
wasn't-
space? The Earth came from... The Earth is in space. So when
Yeah.
Earth formed, like, yeah, Earth came from space. But that's like saying that... That would be like saying that humans came from space because humans are made from the stuff on Earth and Earth came from space.
But I think you don't understand what I mean. I'm just,
Most iron on Earth did not come from meteorites, if that's what you're saying.
But what science says then?
Science
Why
says that
did they
most
say
iron
that?
on Earth is in the Earth's core.
Okay, how did that form?
It formed the same way all of the other planets did. It coalesced while in orbit around the sun.
So it wasn't, because in science they say like there was a big chunk of Earth first, then there was like collisions, then that made the Earth. So those collisions are mentioned in a way that says that the big rock was the original rock, and the small rock that collided with the bigger rock then made the iron, right?
No, that's not the source of the iron on Earth.
Where then?
Most of the iron on Earth formed with the Earth.
Okay. Another example, let's say in the Quran, when you read, there was in the chapter 99, there was mentioned human, and if you count all the letters, sorry for my English, of all the letters before the human word, there's 46 words before human, and humans have 46, if I remember correctly, 46 chromosomes.
Why is God
right?
playing fucking Where's Waldo with us? Like, if God had this like insane
Okay,
scientific
let me
knowledge,
continue
why? But
quickly.
wait. But why wouldn't God just say humans have 46 chromosomes? By the way, here's what chromosomes are. Here's what DNA is. Your best scientists will confirm this in the coming generations. Like, I'd be praying to Allah this very second if the Quran said that. But
But
instead,
what would be the
God,
point
we're
then? What would it be the point to even make a book if because it's all about a testing, believing in what you're not seeing, not on, just believe on the feeling and the unseen rather than believe on just the
why
seen
would why
part
would
of
I
it.
do that? Why would anyone do that?
Okay, another example. I don't know how many chromosomes does horses have, but in the word, before the word horse, if you count every letter before horse, there's like 64. If I remember this correctly, there's 64 chromosomes before horse. The same with the dog word, and the same with other animals. I don't
I
remember.
thought you said you don't know how many chromosomes a horse has.
Does it have 64?
I have no idea.
Oh, I was thinking you're gonna Google it, but I
So
think there's like 64 chromosomes
yeah,
with horse, and dogs have like 49
mhm.
chromosomes. I'm not.
No,
I'm
there are
not.
no animals with an
So
odd number of chromosomes, as
let
far as I'm
Oh
me.
aware.
yeah. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
wait. I thought the other great apes have 47.
Wait, no, they have 44.
But how can you?
Interesting.
How
Oh,
can
sure, sure,
you?
sure. Yeah, because don't we
How
have like
can you?
duplicates?
Or no, wait, no. I think that they fuse. Okay. Uh, we have a fusion, so they have
Yeah.
48. Yeah, they have 48. That's right.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So by this logic, how can you not unprove God's existence?
Yeah, wait. So
How can?
let's go through like some real examples, right? Like if it's the word of God, then every single thing it says should be correct, but that's not true. It says that mountains formed in 4 days, mountains formed over millions of years.
Okay, but the link. How can we know 100%ly? Because in the end of the day,
Yeah, we
we
can just
make we
radiometrically
make
date.
assumptions. We make assumptions. We put together different information and make that form of fact. Science is all about that. It's not 100% truth. It's only like 99% truth. By
So are you saying that mountains did form in 4 days?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Well,
I'm
you better be
saying that.
saying that because that's what the Quran says. And so if you
Yeah.
think that
But
that's wrong, then
I'm saying that in your scientific research or uh, observations isn't always proven to be right, because that's the whole point of science. It's correct. It corrects itself all the time,
Yeah,
but the
exactly.
Quran doesn't correct itself all the
Yeah, yeah.
time.
So the
It's
Quran
all
doesn't
known.
correct itself, so it will be wrong forever. Yeah, that's why science is much
Yeah.
better than
That's
the
the issue.
Quran.
Yeah. Okay. For another example, let's say
Well, wait, wait, wait,
the
wait, wait.
miracles
Hold
of
Well,
the
on.
hold
Quran.
on.
you got to
Yeah.
engage with some of this. You can't just move
Yeah.
on
We
every time
gotta.
they get proved wrong.
Yeah, like if
But okay,
there
you
should be
can
zero
ask me
mistakes in
something.
the Quran. If the Quran is the word of God, we should expect it
Yeah.
to be perfect. Zero mistakes. Why are there
Okay.
mistakes?
Like what?
Like it says that mountains formed in 4 days.
Why can it not form in 4 days?
Because we
What's
know
the
that they
That's not
formed
how
over millions of years.
it's not how mountains work.
Okay, but how I see it, I don't know. Was it 4 days? But if it says in the Quran it's 4 days, I believe in it because we don't talk about not talk about, but we don't understand how God's time works. For him, it might be 4 days, but for us, it might be a millions of years.
Well,
That's the whole
certainly,
point.
certainly you don't want to say that, right? You're trying to garner proof for the existence of God based off of the scientific accuracy of it. Certainly,
Okay,
you don't want
yeah.
to say that all the ones that are wrong, well, that's just a metaphor, and all the ones that are right,
I'm not
well,
saying
those are the ones
it's a
that were intended to be
metaphor.
scientific claims. Otherwise, you'd just be engaging in circular reasoning.
But I'm not saying that it's a metaphor. I'm saying that we cannot say that if God says 4 days, it might be for him 4 days, and for us, it might be millions of years. Because in the end of the day, we are not equal to God's, level. We're not the same as God.
So
In
then,
the figure.
did God just communicate poorly? Because
Mm,
he used the human word for 4 days,
yes,
and
yeah.
humans understand what a million is, so he could have used that word properly. But it seems like he just kind of like fudged the number because he wanted to. Is he just a bad communicator?
Yeah, but I think if you could be an
Yes.
author, let's say
Yeah.
if you, but I'm trying to answer. If you were an author of a book,
Hmm.
let's say, for example, and you were talking about your perspective, so you would talk like concerning your perspective. For example, let's say I went to the toilet. That means that I went to the toilet. Like God said, I created the mountains in 4 days. He created in 4 days. That doesn't mean that the other person lived for 4 days as equal as mine four
Who's
days.
God's target audience?
Humans,
So why is he talking in terms that don't apply to humans?
because he exists too.
But who's his target
Does God exist
audience?
in time?
I think so. He's out of this human time we
So
call.
does he have his own timeline?
No, I'm not in that kind of specific area and knowledgeable in that specific
Well, I
area.
mean, you're definitely so. If he's not referring to human time when he says 4 days, then he must be referring to his own timeline, which means
Yeah.
that God
Yeah.
exists in time and is
In
therefore
time.
not timeless.
Yeah.
Okay, a good point. Good point. Yeah. But did you get the meaning of the author thing?
I understood it, yeah, but that implies that your God is not timeless and therefore is not a God if it exists in time, if it didn't
Yeah.
create time itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the question that I would have though is right when because you brought up creation, we have in the Quran we have a contradiction. We have where in Surah Fusilat in 41 it states that he created it in 8 days, but then when we go to on Nahal it states that he created it in 6 days. So this is a contradiction within the Quran itself. So which was it? Was it created in 6 days or was it created in 8 days?
Oh, can I open the Quran? What surah you mentioned?
It's Fussilat.
Just give the
You know the
number.
number? Yeah, number
Yeah, 41:9 through 12.
40, 49.
41.
41. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
And what was the verse?
9 through 12.
Okay. Just a sec. 9 to 12. Okay, it says he created the earth in 2 days, and how can you see it? Okay. Okay. So he said, in the 9 part, he said he created the earth in 2 days.
Yeah, so if you go look, when you look at verse 10, when it says totaling 4 days exactly, at least on Quran.com, there's a footnote there, and it says these 4 days include the first two, so the total period of creation is 6 days. And then you'll read later on down, going down into verse 12, it'll say there's another 2 days, totaling 8.
Okay.
Yep. So 6 is not 8. There's a contradiction here.
8 is not 6 either.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a transit, or it's reflexive, if you will.
Yeah.
I think I cannot give you a good answer because I haven't even read the whole Quran. I'm still 19, still learning about this. But if that's true, what he's saying, guys, okay, I give you a point. But I have to learn more about it
Yeah,
in
of
order to
course.
answer this professionally.
Yeah, sometimes
But
God drops the ball, we might say.
no, okay, I have other things that the Quran proves that.
Well, wait, but hold on, right? So if it seems like from the examples we've gone through so far, it seems like the Quran has taken like a very scattershot approach to things. So I'm just not sure why we would find it compelling that it gets like some things right when it gets like other things wrong. You know, it's God. God's
for
perfect.
example,
He's
what?
all knowing. Like he's not like your deadbeat dad, right? Like he doesn't sometimes get it right, sometimes get it wrong. We should expect
Okay.
every single instance to be 100% correct, which means that demonstrating certain times that it's correct isn't sufficient. You would need to demonstrate that it's like 100% correct, like every part of it, to even like get off the ground in the first place. And we just know that
Okay.
that's not true.
Okay, but do you have other examples for
Yeah, it
injections or incorrections?
yeah, it says that the colon is between the spine and the rib cage. We would expect the colon to be in the thorax.
No, that's the prostate.
Or I'm sorry, not the colon, the prostate. Exactly, yeah. The prostate. We would expect the prostate to be between the spine and the rib cage in the thorax section of our bodies, but that's not where it is, right? It's in the pelvis section. So it just gets like a basic anatomy fact about humans wrong.
Where does it say that?
Yeah, let me get the verse.
So the anus would be between
No, we're talking about the prostate.
our prostate would be
The prostate
between-
wraps around the bladder, if I remember correctly. Or rather, it's next to the bladder.
86, 6 through 7. They were created from a spurting fluid stemming from between the backbone and the rib cage. So it's talking about sperm. Sperm.
It's talking about semen. Get it right.
Oh, sorry, I don't know.
Sperm comes from the balls.
Oh my fucking god!
Semen comes from the prostate.
Not all of us can be freak splits.
Look, you got to know your stuff if you want to have fun.
Oh fuck! I gotta share this with my audience. I'm sorry. I'm a horrible promoter.
Anyway, so Gould, the point is that it refers to the spurting fluid. The fluid that comes out during, the event, that fluid is semen. Semen is produced in the prostate.
Okay.
However, in the verse, it says that the spurting fluid originates from between, the rib cage and the spine. And the prostate is not between the rib cage and the spine.
Okay.
So, it just gets a basic fact of anatomy wrong. And that's sensible for somebody living 1,400 years ago. They wouldn't know what organ produces that fluid.
Okay.
But if it was inspired by God, it shouldn't be wrong.
Yeah.
Does the prostate have any connections to any veins through the?
Yes, every organ is connected to everything else via veins.
Okay, but
But that's not where the semen is not. The semen doesn't originate from the veins. It originates from the prostate organ.
Okay. Well, if that's true, if you can tell me the verse, I would be happy to read it.
Yeah, 86, 6 through 7.
86. Just a second. 86. 86. What part?
6 through 7.
While he's looking that up, if you guys are watching on YouTube or on TikTok, make sure to like the live stream. It helps us get this out to more people so we can have more interesting conversations and, be more enlightening generally. So all good things to do. You should also follow everybody here. We have Cyber Deconstruction. We have Allegedly, and then we have myself, Dr. Blitz. Links should be in the description for all of us. Maybe not for Cyber, but we should put it there.
Oh, true. Fuck. Well, sometimes you drop the ball. Isn't that right, God?
Absolutely. Okay, so apparently we're being corrected. It's actually a pair of seminal vesicles next to the prostate, but that doesn't make the argument any better. It's not the actual prostate itself.
Yep. Yeah, what am I?
And the seminal vesicles are just next to the prostate.
Prostatologist? I don't have my...
That's a proctologist, by the way.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Now you do.
Yeah.
So apparently Blitz is starting to work on his second doctorate. It's going to be a PhD.
In anatomy, right.
Yeah. Dr. Blitz, PhD, MD.
No, it'd be Dr. Blitz, PhD. You think I'm going to get a clinical degree where I can help people? What are you, insane?
You could be gosh, if you wanted to not work, if you wanted to not be making money until like the age of 50, you could go and get like a whole new like PhD, MD program.
Absolutely, I could, but I think my wife would hate me.
Yeah.
Also, did you see how they're treating grad students these days?
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, so like maybe not.
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean like as of like the last month.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
So like maybe not. Maybe in a few years. Maybe I'll go back for my second PhD.
Yeah, a friend of mine is on like the ground floor of it all, and is letting me know just how bad it is to be like a grad student right now. Hey, the person we were talking to.
Yeah.
You ever find the verse?
Yeah, I read it. I'm just looking up what does the verse mean?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a like possible scientific explanation here. The role of the spine and the ribs and reproduction. The sub backbone can refer to the lumbar region, lower spine, where important nerves and blood supply from male reproductive organs originate.
Well, except the backbone doesn't refer to the lumbar region, to the lower. It doesn't refer to like the pelvis. It doesn't refer to that. That's not what the backbone refers to. And regardless, the point is the seminal semen comes from seminal vessels, which are lower than the rib cage.
Yeah.
But the lumbar region is the lower spine, right?
Sure, but the rib cage is high. It's higher.
Yeah.
So how is it between the lumbar? Yeah, in order to be between the spine and the rib cage, it has to be here or above, right? This is where the rib cage is.
Okay.
But turns out that it's below your stomach, and your stomach's not even within your rib cage.
In fact, it's even below your bladder. Actually, it's like right on your bladder.
Okay. No.
Like this is just not a good one. I mean, the correct thing to do is to say, yes, this was a mistranslation that was passed on down, and actually Gabriel gave Muhammad the correct verse, and it actually originally said between the the penis and the coccyx or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you need like a different like apologetic answer than this one, right? Like this one isn't gonna get you anywhere. Everyone knows what the spine and the rib cage are. Like it's just not there.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So I've got another contradiction for you, and this has 3 different contradictions. So if you go to Surah 15:26, it'll say, "And we did certainly create man out of clay from an altered black mud." And then if you go to Surah 30:20, it says, one of his signs is that he created you from dust. Then behold, you are human beings spreading over the earth. And the third part of this is in 16:4, it says, he created humans from a sperm drop. Then behold, they openly challenge him. So were we created from dust, clay, or did God create Adam and Eve from a sperm drop?
Okay, yeah. I think I have a good answer for it. Adam and Eve were made from the clay, and the dust part is mentioned by the clay is like if you go look at the clay outside or clay that forms naturally, it's pretty brittle and dusty. That's one of the ways to interpret it. And
that's not what clay is. Clay isn't dry. Hold on. Clay's not dry.
But when the clay turns dry,
clay is a special kind of clay is a special kind of dirt that gets mixed with water and it turns into clay. It's not dust.
Can it turn dry? Right? There's dry clay in the world too. When there's areas that are very dry too, where the clay dries up and becomes a little bit dusty. You can see in the wind, for example, going like from like dust. Like you can see, there's videos out.
So the issue that you're going to run into though is it says that we were created from a black mud. That's the clay is the black mud. Mud is not dust, right? Dust is dry, right? Extremely dry. That's the implication. And clay and mud is wet and moist. So that's the contradiction.
But we can see this. Okay, for example, let's say ice can be water, or it could be like smoky. I don't know the correct term for it, like gas. Yeah, it can be gas, or it could be solid, or it could be liquid. Same goes with the clay. It can be dust. It can be wet, and it could be like in the middle.
I understand the apologetic you're saying, but what I'm saying is that when we look at states of matter, right? This is a case of one is dry and one is wet, right? They're fundamentally different.
Okay. But
that's what Ben Shapiro said about his wife. Boom.
But in the end of the day, that dry thing can become wet, right?
Yeah, but they were created from the wet. Wife? They were created from the.
Did you know that she's a doctor?
But they were created from the dry dust, right? So that's the difference, right? So like I said, I understand the apologetic you're trying to employ, but it just doesn't work. The apologetic that you're trying to employ is just going to add another contradiction.
Okay, let me answer your question quickly. For a person that would, let's say, if the Quran was made if the Quran was made by a human, why would the human be so dumb and put contradictions, like so obvious contradictions, in the Quran?
Same reason why that.
Okay, let me continue quickly. 2 billion people.
Hold on, I can answer that real quick. I can answer that.
It's religion growing right now, and the sperm part is that when we were made from the clay, we became humans, but humans could make other humans, and that's the sperm part. It's logical. It's very logical if you think that way, because it seems like you're just nitpicking the things that doesn't sound very logical and say this doesn't sound logical. But in the end of the day, it makes sense, because any kind of author that would make a book wouldn't make.
Well, this is a nice gish gallop. This is a nice gish gallop, and I'm about to go to my fridge and grab Ian and Blitz some salad dressing for that word salad you just gave us. But yeah, I can answer your question though. Yeah, because it's the same man who said that mountains were created in 4 days.
Hold on, I'm confused. Okay. So I don't know about this one, but like so in 478 it says, wherever you may be, death will overcome you, even if you were in fortified towers. When something good befalls them, they say, this is from Allah. And when something evil befalls them, they say, this is from you. Not referring to Allah. Say, O Prophet, both have been destined by Allah. So what is the matter with these people? They can hardly comprehend anything. But then, then it directly says, whatever good befalls, in the next verse, 479, whatever good befalls you is from Allah, and whatever evil befalls you is from yourself. So it seems like in verse 478, it says, all things come from Allah. But in 479, it says, evil comes from yourself. Which one is it?
It means that the evil part, that you are the one that chooses the evil that comes to you, you know.
Wait,
but that's not what it says in verse 478.
Hold on,
In
wait,
478, it says all comes from
right?
Allah.
That's like super crazy and defensible.
Allah, that's true.
It sounds like Allah is like a victim blamer.
Okay, no. Let's be correct. So all comes from Allah. Everything that in this world comes from Allah, but the negative things in your life, those come from Allah too, but are very said to be like that it comes from you because you are the one that chooses to be in some form of situations. Or
so you're telling me that evil comes from yourself and it comes from Allah? Then why was Allah mad at people when people were saying, "Oh, the evil comes from themselves or from other people"?
God created us.
So in verse 4, or in Quran 4 verse 78, what's happening is that people are like, good thing. So the context is that people were saying good things come from God, but bad things come from people. Yeah. And then Allah tells the Prophet to say, actually, both things come from Allah. Meaning that when people say bad things come from people, they were wrong. Except in literally the next verse, it says, actually, evil things, bad things come from yourselves.
Can I answer you, Christian, quickly?
Yeah, please.
Let's say you make a program that is computer program that can learn by itself, and let's say it's simulation. You know the term simulation. You can program the program that you programmed can learn other things without you putting information to it. So let's say I'm the one that programmed this computer, and in this computer there's like beings that can do harm, but they can have good for me. For example, I can give them, like, let's say a good thing, and they can take that good thing and make it to a bad thing or hurt someone else. But in the end of the day, it comes from me because I'm the one that created everything, right?
So then why would he scold people? Why would he scold people for blaming each other for evil if literally in the next verse he says that evil is to be blamed on people? That would be like me. That would be like, so I'm talking to I'm playing GTA 6 or whatever, which has AI simulated NPCs or whatever, and the simulated NPCs, they're like, why are you so evil? Pointing at each other, they're like, you're evil, no, you're evil, no, you're evil, you're causing all of the bad. And I'm like, and so then I code into my NPC. I make my player character. I make him go up and scold the two NPCs who are scolding each other. And like, no, you don't cause evil and you don't cause evil. Actually, I cause evil. Okay, and then 2 minutes later, not 2 minutes later, I say, actually, when evil things happen, it's your fault, not my fault. Like that's just being a contradiction.
I understand you, but there's a concept called free will. We all humans know.
No, the point is, yes, we can grant free will, whatever. It's irrelevant to the point that literally God is just commanding a contradiction. It's saying on the one hand, no, evil comes from me, and on the other hand, yes, evil comes from you, and not the other way around. Like, it's just a contradiction in terms. That's all.
Yeah, wait, we can actually make this super explicit. Where does evil come from?
In sort of way, it comes from us, but in the end of the day, it will come from the Almighty.
Wait,
because he's the one that created all of us.
Does it come from God?
Obviously, he made everything. But I can choose to make more evil or do less evil, right?
So
because I have the freedom of
Allah.
I have the freedom of doing whatever I want. I know the good and bad between everything. I can make good decisions or bad decisions. But in the end of the day, I'm the product of God.
Awesome.
Right?
Did Allah...
So that means God has made good and evil, but I can choose do I do good or evil? So it means I can do good and evil,
come from Allah?
And God can do all good and evil.
Did the Holocaust come from Allah?
We can say that he made humans. We can say that.
That wasn't the question.
It's not the question.
Yeah, that's not the question.
We can say, we can say in the end of the day.
You did?
Why? Obviously, he's the one that created all of us. He's the one that created all of us. In the end of the day, but
I guess Allah hates Jewish people.
No, he made us freedom of.
So it doesn't come from him.
Freedom, yeah.
So wait, so the Holocaust doesn't come from Allah.
In a way, we can say it comes from Allah too.
Well, if it does, then he just hates Jewish people.
No, but he gave you
and the Congolese.
You have the freedom of will to hate Jewish.
So then it didn't come from him. Which one is it?
But your existence proves that he made you. He made you that can make bad decisions and good decisions. But in the end of the day,
either Allah is not responsible for any of the evil in the world. Like it says in verse 49 of Quran book 4 verse 79, or Allah is responsible, in which case Allah just hates Jewish people and Congolese people and anybody else who's ever been, a victim of evil. Like you can't have it both ways.
Okay, we can say like this. There's a mother and there's a son. Let's say the son does something bad. The blame will go to the mother, right? Let's say it's a small child. If the small child does something bad, obviously the blame will go to the child and the mother, right? Because the mother was the one that raised the child. But the mother doesn't have any, restrictions on the child because the child has freedom of will. He can do bad and good. He knows what's bad
so you
and
think
good.
So you're okay with murder? You think rape is fine?
Where did I say that? Where did I say that?
Is that your point? Is that what you're saying?
No,
because if it comes from Allah,
that.
If it comes from Allah, then certainly it must be good.
I didn't say that.
Does it come from Allah?
I didn't say that. What?
Does it come from Allah?
Allah, He made everything.
And is it good?
It comes from Him too.
Did he make
good?
Wait, so he made rape?
No, He made us that can do bad and good.
Okay, and is everything He made, is it good?
No, everything that He made is according to His plan. He said in the book, in the Quran, He said He has a plan, but we humans are not able to comprehend it.
Is His plan good?
From in my perspective, I'm okay with His plan. I obviously.
Are you okay with what's happening in Gaza right now?
No.
Okay, I thought you were okay with His plan.
But I'm here to make that. Let me take a pause. You're just manipulating my words.
Well, don't say you're okay with His plan and then not be okay with His plan in the next sentence.
God gave me this body and this vessel to help other people or do other bad things, right? In Gaza, there's lots of people dying right now, and I feel bad for them. I'm the one that I'm trying to help them in any ways I can. But in the end of the day, it's all in God's plan. Right?
But you're okay with the plan, right?
I cannot be disobedient to something that is greater than me. There's something that gave life to me. Why would I not be
wait a minute, hold on. Gould, have you ever disagreed with your mother?
Yeah.
Okay, so why can't you disagree with your creator?
Because He can take me out of existence.
So could your mother.
Okay. But my mother has limits. God doesn't have limits.
It doesn't matter. The point still stands as you can disagree with your creator all you want. You're not going to be not the end of the world.
Why would I disagree? Because there's a punishment for disagreeers, right? If you're trying to
this is just out of fear. You're just afraid to go to hell. That's why you're not disagreeing.
Not out of fear. There's fear in it too. There's in the Quran. It says fear your God, but at the same time it says many things like love your God. Love. There's lots about love. If we look at the historical point of view in Torah, there's like 50% mention of violence. In the Bible, there's like 25%, and the Quran is like 21% mention of violence. I don't know the exact percentage. You can Google, but the whole book I think you haven't read the book, yeah, because in order to
Have you read the book?
no, but I'm still learning.
We're on the same playing field.
Okay, yeah, but I'm not here judging because let's say for example Newton's law. I'm learning about Newton's law. I'm not there to judge Newton's law before I learn completely because it sounds like a dumb child trying to say, "Oh, I know this. Oh, he's wrong. He's wrong."
Look. Okay, this is a great Gould. This is a great example because
right?
Gould. This is a perfect example. You know why it's a perfect example? Because if somebody comes up onto my live, I'm a physicist, by the way, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
If somebody comes up onto my live and starts telling me why Newton's laws are wrong and why blah 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 blah, and then I ask them if they've ever taken a physics class, if they've ever even heard of Newton's third law, and they say no, they should be ashamed of themselves. And
Yeah.
right now, that's what you're doing. You are currently coming up to try to lecture us about a law, but you don't even know his book. You haven't even read it.
It's
But
not
I'm
even a
still-
long
I'm
book
saying
either.
here-
Like,
I'm saying here, I'm trying to be like down to earth, open to anything. God told me in His book. He said, if you find better book than this, go and take that book. Go believe on it.
Then read the book. How do you know if there's nothing
Yes.
better if you haven't read it? Why are you
That's
here?
the thing. That's the thing. I'm not judging this book until I read it. That's
Then
the
why are you here defending it?
yeah.
But because the story, the thing I heard about it, the things that people say and prove by saying like the verses and the linguistic and the scientific proof that God exists makes me like question, and it makes me like believe in Almighty. In the end of the day, we can say like the biggest people, like let's say for example, this is a bad example, but don't laugh at me guys, but Elon Musk, he says that we live in a simulation and he has his own beliefs in by how the simulation works. In that way we can see Elon Musk is one of the richest man in the earth, and
He is
very
probably the richest.
intelligent. He's a very intelligent person. He has
I don't think that
SpaceX.
that's true.
I cannot say to him like, "Oh, he's not intelligent because of." But there's like things that prove
Can
that
you find me
he's
one
intelligent.
clip? Can you find me one clip of Elon Musk where he sounds intelligent? Like just one clip.
Okay. Can I ask you? Okay, let me requote this. Are you a billionaire? Do you have a space station?
No.
Yeah,
I
actually,
don't.
yes.
Oh fuck.
Look,
yeah,
Actually, yes.
Yes.
that
Actually,
makes
yes.
sense then, because in order to get money, because I'm trying to learn, economics and how money works. In order to make money, you have to be smart. And
No, you
That's
don't.
not
You
true.
absolutely
That's
hold
not
on. So
true.
just to be clear, people with the highest IQs are not the richest people in the world. Like it's just factually not true. People with the highest IQs tend to be very antisocial because their
that's
brain
true,
works a
that's
certain way, and people
Okay,
with average IQs tend to be very social because they can get along with most people. In fact, if I had to put money on it, I would say that Elon Musk has an IQ of less than 110, which perhaps is slightly above average, but and on the other hand, Donald Trump might have an IQ of like 85. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'd probably
But
put
in
it
the end
like
of
right
the
around
day-
like 110, right? He has
But
like
in-
110, and then he has like autism voice, so people think that it's like fucking 8 million IQ points.
Okay.
I don't even know
get
if I'd place him at 110. Definitely lower. But anyway.
I get your point, but in the end of the day, you're not the people that play the chess. You are the ones that are moved. If a war happens, you are the ones that
Can you
are
explain to us how the knight
drafted.
moves? Wait, how does the knight move in
you guys-
chess?
let me continue.
Can you inform us as to how the knight moves in chess?
Knight is the knight. Because I don't speak English that
I'm
well.
gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. It's the
How
horse.
does the knight move?
It's the
A
horse.
in an L shape.
Oh, fuck
Okay, great.
yeah, let's go.
I'm not
So
that.
let-
I have like problem.
let
with
me
my
ask you,
English. Sorry, Brett, I'm
let
not
me ask
native
you,
English language, but yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. What are your views on Bakari?
Bakari. I'm not. I
Yeah.
don't know him that well. He's a scientist, but I don't know about him that much.
Well,
Wait,
no,
I'm so sorry. Wait,
he
I'm so
wrote
we
a
just have like
hadith.
lots of people waiting, right? So thanks for coming up. We're probably gonna move
Oh,
on to
that's
the next
fair.
one.
That's fair.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
good
Thanks for being here,
times.
Gould.
It was
Go read the book and then we can talk.
Yep.
How
All
about
right,
that?
on to the next one. Hey, what's up?
All right, Pooh Boy. It's Pooh Boy. Boy of poop. Pooh Boy. is.
All
Oh,
right.
where'd they go?
On to the next one. Let's get Aurora.
Where'd Pooh Boy go?
I don't know. Ran, fled, left. Aurora. how's it
Icon was
going?
next, by the way. Icon.
Oh.
Okay, or not.
Well,
Rip.
fuck. Aurora, are you there?
All right, Aurora it is.
Are you there, Aurora? Hello? Speak up. Okay. Icon, how's it going? Hello, Icon? Are you there? I can't hear goddamn any of y'all.
All right, well, I guess we move on to Icon High School Student, who's a high school student, and maybe we shouldn't move on to them. They just left anyway.
True. All right. Who's next? Mohammed?
I suppose.
Mohammed, are you there?
Yeah, hello. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Howdy.
hear you. Yeah, what's up? How's it going?
I'm 18 years old, but I'm from France, so I don't know very well English. Sorry.
That's okay.
Do you speak Arabic?
No, I don't. Like
Okay.
I just want to come up with one thing that y'all said like I think 20 minutes ago, something
Sure.
like that.
Sure.
Like about the 4 days and 8 days of the creation of Earth. You know, I just want to talk about that because I'm not well educated enough to talk about other things, I think. You know. So like the thing that y'all said is that in the Quran, in the Surah, they talk about the earth and they say that they created earth in 2 days. And after that, in 2 days, they created the things on earth. How do I see the verse and how we, the Muslims, understand the verse is that God created the earth in 2 days. And after that, he created the mountains, the trees, the seas. Like, you know, earth changed many times their shape, you know? And that everything that created on earth, it was 2 days also.
Well, certainly not the mountains, right? Like the mountains took like millions of years to create. So it seems like the Quran is like flat wrong about that.
Yeah, but like the fact is that 2 days, there's a verse in the Quran. I'm sorry, if you want, I will try to find it. There's a verse in the Quran that said that 2 days to God is not 2 days for us. You know, that
How many days is it?
way more.
And does
I think it was
does
something
God
like
exist in his own time?
God can choose to exist in a time that is not the same as ours.
Why would he
Like,
do
I
that?
think,
It seems like
because
it
he
seems
wants
like
to.
it fails Occam's razor.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Because
I
he
just want to
wants- Like, why-
know. I just want to know like who's God's target audience.
The humans.
So then why is he using terms that only apply to him? Like why is he using this like human term in a way
But he
that's like not
explains
standard
to-
to any human?
Like, you know, a teacher in a class, he use terms that you don't know because he's teaching it to
Then
you.
they're a bad
You don't
teacher.
understand. Yeah, but he's like, can I in please like
Yeah,
like
go
God,
ahead.
when he says 1 day for me is not the equal as 1 day for you, he does not just let us like that. No, he explains to us what is a day for him, you know. So,
That sounds like a terrible teacher, right? Like why wouldn't he just use like a different term then?
Like this would be like me going up
because he
to my
wants
students.
what does he change?
So Mohammed, this would be like me saying to my students, yeah, so let's say I was teaching like a physics class and I would be like, yeah, so the density of lead is 2,000 kilograms per cubic centimeter. But by kilograms, I actually mean 18 grams. Like I would just be being a bad teacher. That's not how you communicate with people who don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good explanation that you gave, but it's not relevant to what I'm saying.
It's one-to-one
Like,
analogous.
the fact is like we can philosophically understand what God wants to say, saying that maybe a day for Him is not a day the same as you, saying that we're not in the same time. We not like feel the time as the same. But like, what I wanted to say is that the fact that we're talking about that God say in one verse. He created everything in 8 days, and that in the other one 6 days. That's a false contradiction. It's not a contradiction because how it was added is that he created Earth in 2 days, like in 2 days, not as same as ours. Then 2 days he created the things on Earth, and then 2 days it's adding. It makes 4 days, and 2 days you add is the seventh heavens. It makes 6 days, not 8. Like it's not
No,
a contradiction.
that's not what it says. So you mentioned yourself that you don't speak Arabic. So we're both going to be using a translation here. So when you go on
Yeah.
Quran.com and when you go look at verse 10, when it says he placed on the earth firm mountains, standing high, showed his blessings upon it, all its meaning, sustenance, totaling 4 days exactly. There's a footnote there, and it says these 4 days include the first two, so the total period is 6. So up to this point, we're
No.
at 6 days.
Okay, no, that's not what he says. Like we would disagree on that because if we read the verse 31 and on the Surah 41 verse 6, he says, "Ask them, O Prophet, how can you disbelieve in the one who created the earth in 2 days?" Then he says, he plays the next verse, he plays the firm mountains, standing high, showered his blessing upon it, and ordered all immense sustenance, totaling 4 days exactly. That means that he created earth in 2 days, and then the mountains, etc., in 2 days, adding up 4 days, the two. After that, in the next verse,
so let me just clarify here. So clearly,
sorry.
it's at least confusing. You might be right that that's how it was intended, but as written, it's at least confusing. So it seems like he's just not a perfect communicator.
Yeah.
That's how you see it, because like I said, maybe for you it's not a bad communicator.
Why does it take interpretation in order to figure out exactly what he's saying? Like it should just be 100% crystal clear. He should have said it takes 2 days to do this, and then 2 more days to do this, and then 2 more days to do that.
Yeah, the fact is, Dr. Bliss, with all respect, like, does it change the fact that he exists or not if he wants
Yes,
to
it
say like
does.
that? Like, if
Absolutely.
you want
Yeah.
to say it like that, he wants to say it like that. But it does not disprove his existence.
It would
He
would
just wants
disprove
to say
his
it like that.
existence, right? Because then he would be an imperfect communicator, which means that he's not a perfect being, which means that there would be a contradiction, that God would both be
That's how
perfect but
do you
also
see it?
not
Because,
perfect.
like I said, it can have a philosophical meaning. The fact that the time for him is not as the same as ours.
Well, yeah, but then God is just like a bad communicator, right? So then God isn't perfect. He's like pretty okay.
If someone talks to you with philosophical ways, is he a bad communicator, or do you just
Sorry,
don't understand what he wants to say to?
What was the Quran addressed to philosophers or to everyday people?
Quran was addressed to people every
To
day, and to
everyone,
philosophers.
right?
Like,
So
I
who
just want
is
to
his
say
target
something.
audience? Is it philosophers?
When a scientist talks something to everyday people, does he still use scientific words? That's
Depends, but scientists aren't perfect communicators, as much as we might try.
Yeah, some aren't, but like
No, there are no
general,
perfect communicators amongst humans, right?
there's good communicators.
There are good
Yeah.
communicators, but there are no perfect communicators. A
Yeah,
perfect
we agree on
communicator
that.
would never fail to communicate their message properly.
Yeah.
But like the thing that you say that he's a bad communicator, does the sense of the verse is do you understand what he
Wait,
wanted to
so
say? Yes
what
or
is
no?
it? What does a day mean to God?
Allahu alam, only God knows that. Like I don't
Oh,
understand
wait,
your
cool. Oh,
question.
but then God is necessarily a bad communicator, because if the sense of day that God is using when he talks about this is a sense that only he knows, then he's putting forward a sentence into the ether that only he is able to understand. This sentence is completely incomprehensible then.
Ian, like I said to you, he explained it in other
No,
verses.
but
I
you
can
just
show it
said
to you.
that we don't know what a day
Where
means.
did he explain it?
Okay, I would. Okay.
Where did he explain
now
what a
I
day
will
is?
Try to find. Like.
Oh, because I can tell you. So in chapter 34, verse 5, sorry, 32, verse 5, he says that he conducts every affair from the heavens to the earth, then it all ascends to him on a day whose length is 1,000 years by your counting. So according to this verse, a day is 1,000 years. Then in chapter 70, verse 4, he says, well, verse 3, it starts from Allah, Lord of pathway of heavenly ascent, through which the angels and the Holy Spirit will ascend to him on a day 50,000 years in length. So it seems like a day is either 1,000 years or 50,000 years, and he's not telling us which one.
Can you give me the
Yeah, it's 32.
So I can,
It's 32:5 and 74.
32, right?
32
5,
verse 5 and 70 verse 4.
70 verse 4, Quran.com. So like just so that we're clear on that, the question about the 4 and 6 days, we're clear.
It's super unclear. It's just super unclear.
Like it's
what
not
he
a
means.
contradiction. Like,
well,
wait,
it
but
might
it's-
not be a contradiction given the correct interpretation, but that's just a sign of bad communication.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, but it's not a contradiction. We're clear that it's not a
Well, no,
contradiction.
no, but
might
the
not be.
contradiction, the contradiction then becomes God is both perfect and also not perfect.
Okay, but it's not a contradiction. We agree on that.
Well,
okay.
it is the contradiction is God is both perfect and God is not perfect.
Okay, like he conducts. Okay, I will try to read it from the start. Okay, the relation of this book beyond doubt, or they say fabricated. No, it's not true. It's Allah who created the heavens and the earth, everything in 6 days, and then established himself on the throne. You are not protector or interested without him. Will not be thankful. He connected every affair of the heavens to the earth. Then it's all ascended to him in one day, whose length is 1,000 years by your counting. Okay, next verse. Do you say 32:5, right? And then 70.
Yeah, it's 70 verse 4. Yeah.
Through which the angels of the Holy Spirit were sent to him on day 50,000 years in length. Yeah, he's not talking about the same thing.
Oh, so wait a minute. So God sometimes experiences days that are 1,000 years and sometimes experiences days that are 50,000 years?
Well, a challenger has demanded punishment bound to come from the disbelievers to be averted by none. From Allah, lords of pathways of heaven ascend, through which the angels and the Holy Spirit will ascend to him on a day 50,000 years in length. Yes, that's how I understand it. Like
here's the issue. The issue becomes if one day for God is not some fixed amount of time and it's just some wishy-washy thing, then you can't use any description of a day in the Quran to refer to any known period of time, which just means that, again, God is a poor communicator because he uses the word day inconsistently throughout the book. So you can't even read it properly. It's not even sufficient to read it and understand the full thing to know what he means by day because he means different things at different parts.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like the term day has no meaning at this point, right? Like it literally just denotes like some period of time. It could be like 3 seconds, it could be 8 trillion years. Day is meaningless.
But like, are we agreeing on right now that on the fact that if God was dependent on a day that is fixed, then he will not be all powerful because there will be something higher than him that fixes something in his life. Are we agreeing on that?
No.
Well,
right,
I don't think that you can even. I don't even think that you
God,
can agree that God exists in time. So there should be no sense in which one day to God is any amount of time because he's not supposed to even exist in time.
Mm-hmm.
If God wants a day for him to be like 15 years, he can do it to him. If want a day for us, like if you go to a black hole, the day that you experience in a black hole is not the same day as we experience on Earth.
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry.
Okay, yes. Okay, maybe I just.
Is God supermassive?
Does he have a big booty?
No, because God doesn't need to be supermassive to experience day different because he's all powerful. He doesn't. He chooses to apply the logic.
So exactly how long is a day? When the Quran says that God made mountains in 4 days, exactly how long is a day?
In that fact, I don't know.
Then it sounds like God's like a bad communicator.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what does it needs to be explained if he say in 4 days? 4 days to who?
So then why? Wait, hold on. Does every? I'm sorry.
1,000. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Mohammed. Does every verse in the Quran have meaning? Is it? Would the Quran be less perfect if even one verse was left out?
What do you mean by meaning and left out?
Yeah. So let's say that you just deleted a random verse from the Quran. Would the Quran be less perfect?
That's a hard question to answer. But like, if it was, I think it
like
will
if I took two versions of the Quran, right? One is exactly as it is now, and then one I just randomly deleted a verse without telling you. Which one would be more perfect?
The first one.
Okay, great. That's what you should say, because if you're a Muslim, you're supposed to believe that the Quran is a perfect book. However, it seems like the verse saying that God took 4 days to, create the mountains and all of these things, that verse contains zero information. It tells people nothing. So in fact, that verse is superfluous, meaning that if you deleted that verse, the Quran would be shorter and contain the same amount of information, making it more perfect.
I can tell you why it's not true. You know
Okay,
why?
what information does that
Because
verse contain?
in
What do
that
you learn
verse,
from that verse?
I learned that first of all, God created the earth, then He created the mountains, everything on that earth, and then He created the seven heavens.
Yeah,
In
but
what order?
the point is that you could just delete the bit about it being 4 days, and it would contain the exact same amount of information.
No, no.
You would learn
Because I
you
will
would
not
learn
know the
nothing. You would
order.
learn nothing more by having the 4 days
No,
business.
I'm saying to that I will know the order of everything.
Well, yeah.
No,
yeah.
he
So,
could tell you the
yeah.
order without the number of days.
But he can, but no, yet what he can see, like he can, like then
Yeah,
we
he can
don't
say
know
he can
the
say I
days.
made the earth, then I made the mountains, then I made like the rivers, then I made the heavens.
Yeah, but what would it change?
It would be more concise, and it
Yeah.
wouldn't have superfluous words.
Yeah, like the 4 days is meaningless. It means nothing.
And like I want to add something. It's not because we don't know if the days that he talks about are explained that it doesn't necessarily explain. Like I said, I'm someone that's very young. I don't have all the necessary knowledge, so maybe he explained it somewhere, but I just don't know it. I can
Wait,
accept
hold
that.
on. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt. Mohammed, this isn't about you, but somebody is arguing about science in the comments, and he says scientists can't create wind. And I'm like, what the fuck do you think a fan is? Like, what? Anyway, sorry for interrupting. I just had to say that because it was
Yeah,
really
no
funny.
problem, no problem. So like I said, it's not because I don't necessarily have an answer to give you on that the answer doesn't exist, like, you know. But I just wanted to come up here to be clear on that part, and also another part that Cyber said. I may sometimes I think like Cyber, maybe you taking your arguments on Google, honestly, because every time it's the same arguments, like about God that makes humans first with clay, then dust with, and then with the, I can't say the word because I'm in home. My mother will kill me, like with the S word, you know.
Damn.
Poop.
What
But like,
a
are you all agreeing with me that a cake is made with flour?
among
Huh?
other things.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say cakes include flour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it include also? It does it made also with eggs?
Sometimes.
Most of the time, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Does it? If I say my cake is made with eggs, am I incorrect?
No, no, you'd
if
be
I-
right. Unless your cake doesn't have eggs in
Well,
it.
and so if the claim, it
Yeah.
depends on what
May-
scope you're
if
saying.
5
Are you
minutes later I
claiming?
say,
Are you
"No, my
claiming?
cake-
Wait,
my
wait,
cake is also-"
wait, hold on. Are you saying some cakes are made with eggs, or are you saying all cakes are made with eggs? I agree. Some cakes are made with eggs. I don't agree that all cakes are made with eggs.
No, you overcomplicated it, Ian.
Well, I just want to be clear on the
like,
scope,
I would
right?
say-
Like, let's just be clear on the scope.
Yeah, like I prepare a cake, you know. I add flour, I add it on the water, I add eggs on it. Then I
Sugar?
say my cake
Butter.
is no sugar.
Flour.
My cake is made of eggs. Then 5
Yeah,
minutes
you'd be
later, I
correct.
say my cake is made of flour, and then
You'd be
I say
correct,
my
yeah.
cake is made of water. Am I
Yeah.
saying that my cake is not made of eggs?
Well, see, the problem with the analogy is that, yes, so cakes have eggs and water and flour in them. So if you say my cake has eggs, my cake has water, whatever, that you'd be correct. The thing is people aren't made of dirt. People aren't made of mud. There's no mud that goes into making a person. There's no clay that goes into making a person. Those are like particular soil compounds that are not included in the making of a human. So you would be incorrect for saying that.
Is
yeah.
the bone not made of clay?
Is the bone not? No, bone is not made of clay.
Make clay, no.
Is there not a compound made of clay?
But no, bones aren't made of clay.
Let me fact check that.
Like clay is a particular type of soil. It's a type of fine-grained natural soil material containing clay minerals, which includes hydrous aluminum, phyllosilicates, kaolinite, etc. In particular, clay typically has aluminum in it. In fact, that's one of the defining features of clay, having aluminum in them. But we don't have aluminum in us.
But like we have the other things.
So look. If I say that a tree is made of iron, it would be wrong, even though trees have some iron. Or sorry, let me rephrase. If I say that the Empire State Building is made of blood, that would be wrong, even though both blood and the Empire State Building both have iron in them.
Like, but that's just not the same thing because.
No,
like,
it is because look, you're saying
No,
that humans
because-
and
yeah.
clay are both have some things in common, just like how blood and the Empire State Building have some things in common. But that doesn't mean one is made from the other.
But the difference is that now you say that clay and bones have many things in common, but not the aluminum. And now you say that blood and the Empire State has only one thing in common.
Well, no,
probably
blood.
things-
I mean, they'll have other things in common. They'll have like carbon in common and oxygen in common because like plaster has oxygen in it and carbon
Yeah, but
and
the difference they have
calcium.
many things that are uncommon.
Between blood and the Empire State Building, not really.
Yeah.
They're all made from stuff found on the Earth, so it's going to be pretty similar in all regards.
Yeah,
The ratios will be
No,
different,
yeah,
but the
the
ratios
ratios,
are different.
No,
Yeah.
like just because in bone maybe we do not have aluminum, it doesn't say that maybe we don't have composite.
But that's like the
clay in it.
defining feature of clay. The defining
Is it?
feature of clay is having hydrous aluminum phyllosilicates. That's what a clay mineral is.
It's like if there's not aluminum, there's not the clay, there's not bones.
Yeah, so bones are not, or sorry, aluminum is not found in bones.
But
In like,
I'm sorry,
you
I'm
know,
just googling right
like
now. with that,
like alumina, like bones are made of calcium primarily,
What's
right?
what's the French education system doing, man? I feel like this is all just like very common sense.
So
it's not actually. It's not because like.
so
I think that when I sorry, Dr. Bliss, I just
you're
want to say
fine. You're fine.
something.
Go ahead.
When I was in school, we pretty much learned, and I did ask that question also to my teachers. Is like bones made of clay, somewhat clay? They said that yes.
Oh, well, they lied to you. So
Yeah,
bones are
that's
made
absurd.
of like. So the bone that makes up like the stuff that makes up like the structure of your bone is crystalline hydroxyapatite, which is calcium, phosphorus, oxygen, and that's it. And then there's some proteins, with type 1 collagen being the most abundant, and we can check what those are made out of. But like the ratio, like if you compare like, clay is going to be majority aluminum, hydrous aluminum phyllosilicates, right? There might be trace elements of aluminum in bones, but like that's they're going to be like a minuscule, negligible trace amount by weight. I don't even know if there's any aluminum in bones. There's just most things in most things.
So do you say that there is or there's not?
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if like one protein that's involved in making up bones has like one aluminum atom, just because that's how like the human body contains most elements, except like some very, very heavy metals. But to say that bones are made of aluminum because there's one aluminum atom for every 10 million calcium atoms is absurd.
Okay, so like you are making the claim, if I understand, that there is not clay in bones.
Yes, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, like I said, sometimes I don't have the necessary like education. Yeah, y'all are
That's
more
fine,
smarter than me.
yeah.
I'm pretty young. I can grow with time.
Yeah, that's
that sort of
fine.
things.
Yeah,
Like-
hopefully you will. Yeah.
Like I can take that. I will try to educate myself on that in the future, and maybe rejoin and we could debate on that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
In
Okay.
the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much for
Cool.
coming
Like
up.
like I said, like I said, the fact that it's the three things in the Quran, like I said, the three things are made of that. It's not because I say that one is made of that the others are excluded.
Okay. Well,
It's
we
like-
appreciate you
it's
coming on
all-
up here.
Yeah, I appreciate talking to you just with all the things that I wanted to say.
Yep.
See you guys. Ciao.
Yep.
Take care. I think that the next person to come up should be Icon if they're not actually a high school student.
Yeah. True. Oh wait, but we got to read super chats.
Oh yeah, we have to read super chats. Read super chats, Ian, because I think you have access to them, right?
Yeah, I do. Aaron, thank you so much for the $20 on YouTube. You guys are freaking awesome. Love you, brothers. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Aaron. Big W, Aaron, in that comment section. Massive W.
Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate it. That's like so kind of you. I really appreciate the support, as do everyone, I think. Judas says, hello, Dr. Lightning and friends. Hello, Judas.
That's what they call me.
Judas says, never mind. But Judas, thank you so much for the $10 on YouTube. Let's get a huge W for Judas in that comment section. I appreciate that. I appreciate the absolute hell out of that. I love big women. Thank you so much for the $5 Canadian for great knowledge. I appreciate that. I love big women. Let's get a huge W
Admitted.
for I love big women in that comment section.
Why do you
Massive
keep telling us
W.
about your preferences, Ian?
Shut the fuck up.
Get wrecked.
Oh my god. Robert, thank you so much for the $5 on whatever.
Wait, hold on, you gotta read it.
Yeah, thanks so much for the $5, Robert, for making it rain. I appreciate that. Let's get a big W, Robert, in that comment section. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much to all the people who sent super chats. And with that, we'll go on to the next one. Who's up? Who's next? Icon? Icon, are you there?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah,
Hello.
wait, are you actually a high school student?
Hey. I am a high school student.
Are you
That's
18
okay.
plus? Are you 18?
I am 18 and I'm in high school, if that's
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
That's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're good.
yeah, okay. So, yeah, and I mean, first of all, thank you guys so much for, talking again. But yeah, like, and also to mention, like, I'm sorry for, like, the delays, of course. There's always some delays going on and make it hard for us to go back and forth, like, more rapidly.
Yep.
All right.
Well, how long of a delay is it?
So I feel like from what I've rewatched the live, like I think at most like 2 seconds. If I think the longest delay, if I heard it was like 2 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, what do you have?
Okay, so last time I remember talking to you and Justin, but Dr. Bliss wasn't here. So what if we do like I'll maybe review the concept for no more than like 5 minutes.
By the way,
and maybe,
so
Sorry.
your audio is really bad, Icon. Like it's really really choppy and awful. Is there a way that you can fix your audio?
well, let me try. Mic check.
It's still
Hello?
really like
Check,
you guys are
1,
hearing
2.
this too, right? Like
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Check 1 2. Mic check.
Better?
It's not great. It might be better, but
Wait, say like
should
a
I
full
rejoin?
sentence or something.
yeah, give us a full sentence.
Hello, hello everybody. 2025. Hello.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Hi.
Yeah, you're
I'm
good.
good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems better.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is like kind of review what I've talked with you last time, but like Dr. Bliss wasn't here, so like, and I don't want to spend more than 5 minutes on this, and then I want to kind of move on to the morality argument, if that's
Maybe we
okay
can
with
just
you
skip
guys.
this and go to the morality argument, right? Like we're just
Just
gonna
go to
we've
morality?
already rehashed like all of the A theory, B theory
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
We've done it twice so far.
Yeah.
I feel
Oh,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
fear
Nah.
we're going to actualize another infinite if we have this conversation again.
Right. All right. Yeah, it seems fair because we might just get stuck forever. All right. So I guess let's move on to the morality argument.
Yep.
All right. So the morality argument shows like not the same way that with the cosmological argument, but it shows like there must be a standard. So the classic statement goes like this. It goes like if objective morality doesn't exist, then God doesn't exist. If objective morality does exist, then God is. That's the standard statement. So you mind if I ask what are your guys' views on morality?
Well, wait. So that's okay. First of all, this is like a bad first statement, right? So what you would be then demonstrating is so the way that this argument would need to work, your best case scenario is that it's like a modus tollens, right? But then at that point you would just have to prove that it's not the case that God doesn't exist, and then your conclusion would be that objective morality exists. I think the one that you're trying to say is that if God doesn't exist, then objective morality doesn't exist, but objective morality does exist, therefore God exists. Or you're saying if objective morality exists, then God exists. Objective morality exists, therefore God exists.
By the way, this is not a statement from me. This is the classical, I think, statement they put up for the standard morality argument. But this is not from me. I'm just stating the widely known statement. But we can get to it ourselves. So I think, should we start by defining what morality is and kind of dive to it?
Sure, yeah, just like the set of things that you should do.
Okay, so for me, I define morality in layman's term. I'll just say morality is what is right and wrong in terms of actions and duties. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, those are synonyms, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So, and do you guys believe that morality is objective or no?
I think we probably have like a variety of beliefs, right? So I can defend that it's objective, although I think I'm probably a quietist about ethics.
Okay.
I probably think it's an empirical question. It just means like whatever people mean it to mean. And then people seem to be quite confused. They don't really seem to be meaning it like objectively or subjectively. So, but sure, I'll that's boring. So I'll say yes. I think objective morality is real.
Okay, and objective.
And I would
in the
say,
sense,
let's say it's not. Sorry. Like you're like the point is whether you're an atheist or if you're an atheist, you can take either view. You can take the view that morality is objective. You can take the view that morality is subjective. You can take the view that morality doesn't exist. That like it's like a nonsensical term. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can view it. But that has nothing to do with whether you're an atheist or not. Atheists can take any position on that.
Yeah. Okay, and just to clarify, objective in this case, we mean like independent of subjects or independent of what we think. So for example, like if 1 + 1 = 2, and if that's true, then regardless of what anybody thinks, that's true regardless. That's what objective means. Yeah. Would we agree?
Yeah. So just like mind independent?
Yeah. Or like reality, basically. That's what reality means, to be independent of subjects or agencies.
Yeah, sure. Wait, so is your morality dependent on God's subjectivity?
What do you mean by that?
Does your morality depend on God's subjectivity? Like, if God subjectively wants for you to keep the Sabbath holy, then does your morality depend on that?
Great question. I think let's get right to it. I think what you're asking is similar to the Euthyphro dilemma, if I'm
basically,
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Euthyphro dilemma says, does God do it because it's good, so he's looking at a standard beyond him and saying, oh, that's good, so I'll do it? Or does God do it because it's good, so he just makes it up? Like, I think the Muslim God believes that, if I'm correct, I think the Muslim believe God is arbitrary, but actually, I think that dilemma is false, because there's a third option, which is God is neither looking at the standard beyond him, he's not inventing standards arbitrary, instead, he is the standard. That's my view.
Is his mind
that's
the
the second position.
Is his nature the standard? Like,
no. There's a difference, because the second thing, right, says God does it because it's good. So he can say like, oh, today rape may be good, but tomorrow rape may be different. So he can change it arbitrarily.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the difference is that if God is the standard, then the standard cannot change. He's constant.
Oh, well, that's begging the question. I mean, that's like, you might say that, and I think I'm actually using begging the question properly there. You might actually say that God is unchanging and God sets the standard for morality. That wasn't a correct usage of begging the question. The point still stands. It might be the case that God's unchanging, but that doesn't mean that that the standard that God set is a subjective standard, because it means that that God's unchanging nature is determining that standard, but that still depends on the nature of God. It's still subjective in that regard.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? Because if he is the standard,
subjective means depends on an agent, correct? Or perhaps depends on a mind. God is that mind upon which the standard of morality depends.
His nature establishes what is objective.
Yeah,
but he cannot just arbitrarily change.
Wait, so I got a question about his nature, right?
Yeah, go
ahead. Is his nature the way it is because it's good, or are things good because of the way God's nature is?
Neither. He is the standard.
But what's the priority there? Is it?
What do you mean?
Is God identical to good?
Yeah, God is goodness. Like he's not
Okay, then
making
he is the
goodness.
standard.
Yeah, he is
Then
the
he is
standard.
the standard.
What do you
His
mean?
nature is the standard.
Oh, gotcha. Wait,
Yeah.
so if it was in God's nature to be like a lying, cheating scoundrel, would being a lying, cheating scoundrel be good?
No, by our recognition, no.
Oh,
Wait, what?
then his nature isn't the standard.
Oh, wait, ask the question again. Maybe I
Yeah,
misanswered
if it was in God's
Ask it again.
nature to be a lying, cheating scoundrel, would being a lying, cheating scoundrel be good?
So you're asking a question what we know intuitively to be evil, right? And if you say if God does that, is he still good? Is that what you're
Well,
asking?
if it was in God's nature to be a lying, cheating scoundrel, then would being a lying, cheating scoundrel be good?
No, it cannot go against what we intuitively know for sure. Like here's the thing. Can I explain? Like, let me back up for a second about morality here. So going back to morality is about right and wrong, right?
Mhm.
So
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's start from there. So right and wrong. Like, would you agree that right and wrong presupposes the standard? Right as defined as correspondence to the standard, and wrong as defined as deviation from the standard.
I mean, it depends on your meta ethics. I don't think it presupposes
think
that.
we would-
Certainly not.
Well, I think we need to know what you mean by God is the standard, right? Because you say that God is the standard, his nature's the standard, but then when Ian provides a hypothetical, you say, well, it would depend on what we intuitively know. So what is it? Is God the standard or is God not the standard? And what do you mean by that?
Hmm.
Well, the difference is that just because it's from our intuition, like for example, we recognize that, say, murder and rape is wrong, right? Like we recognize that, but just because we recognize it doesn't mean we make it true. So it's not subjective. We're recognizing the objective thing. If that makes sense.
That's not what that's not the hypothetical Ian gave. The hypothetical that Ian gave is if God is a lying, cheating scoundrel, would that be the standard? Like if that was his nature.
Because like from what I'm, if I don't understand your question correctly, you're kind of saying like if God were to do what we know to be if it
evil,
were in
his
right?
nature to do those things, would the standard then be that goodness is when you're a lying, cheating scoundrel?
No, because like the thing
Well,
is
then
like
what would the
like
standard of
you're trying to
morality be?
flip the script of what is. Yeah, but you're saying you're similar to you're saying I suppose it's saying what if God says rape is good, for example, right? Is that similar to what you're asking?
No, right? Because you're saying
No.
so specifically what I'm talking about is God's nature. If it was in God's nature to be a lying, cheating scoundrel, would it be good? Not if God like says it's good to be a lying, cheating scoundrel. If it was in his nature to do those things, would that be good?
What do you mean in his nature?
You said that it's God's nature that is the standard of right and wrong. I'm asking you if it was in God's nature to be a lying, cheating scoundrel, would that make being a lying, cheating scoundrel good?
Not that we recognize. No.
Then what would
Like
the standard
cheating,
of morality be?
Well, just not that. Like, well, I'm not sure what you're trying to get at here.
Look, so it seems like
yeah, go for it.
It seems like that. So we're imagining a possible world where the God that exists created the universe, but also just is like a really big fan of like armed robbery, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that world, even though God sent down prophets, and in the prophet's book he says, yeah, murder is bad, but or maybe he says, you know, lying is bad, but armed robbery is good. Would you still think that armed robbery is bad?
Would I still think armed robbery is bad if God says it's good?
Yeah.
I think you mind phrasing it another way? I'm really trying to process this.
Yeah, so imagine that there's a God that imagine that the God that actually exists thinks that armed robbery is good, and he even sent down prophets who wrote books that say armed robbery is good. You as a person existing in this hypothetical world, would you believe that armed robbery was good?
it's kind of confusing because it's kind of like flipping the script of what we know to be evil and saying if God would do that.
That's the question, right? If God tells you that armed robbery or grape or murder, if God tells you that those things are good, would that make you believe that those things are actually good?
Well, it's confusing because God cannot definitely contradict what we intuitively know to be wrong.
It's a hypothetical.
But well, I mean, but are you assuming that those things are wrong?
I'm not assuming anything. I'm asking if he said that those things are wrong, would you agree with him?
If he's the standard, yeah.
Sorry, if he said that those things are right, would you agree with him?
Yeah, but you would just be switching labels, and then good will become evil, and evil will become good.
Yeah.
So wait, so then good and evil is arbitrary?
It's not arbitrary.
It seems like it just depends on God's nature. It's subjective.
Yeah.
How's it subjective? Wait, okay.
Because God's nature were different, then good and evil would be different.
Let me approach it in another way. Let's back up for a second. Going back to the standard, you would agree that rape and murder is objectively wrong, regardless of what anybody thinks, right?
Damn, W pivot. W trying to like wriggle out of the point that you just got trapped in.
Well, because
sure. I'll say
I understand what you're trying to get.
I agree that those things are wrong. Yeah.
Okay, so if it's objective, can it be grounded in subjects?
It could be like an emergent property of subjects.
And by the way, saying that it's always wrong doesn't make it objective. That just makes it universal. Universal and objective aren't the same thing.
Yeah. Also, additionally, God's a subject, so your morality is grounded in a subject. So.
Yeah, but his nature establishes the objective morality.
Except if it were different, then morality somehow wouldn't be different.
So just to be clear, when you say objective, do you just mean like it's always true, or do you mean like doesn't depend on a subject?
Objective means reality, or what is ontologically true, not epistemology, but ontology. That's what I mean.
I'm gonna end it, dude.
Don't make Ian cry. Look, so the way that we're using the word objective is, in some sense, stance independent, or perhaps mind independent, or subject independent. That's how we understand the word objective to mean. That's different from universal. That's different from true. And so when we say subjective, what we mean is not those things. So maybe it's stance dependent, or maybe it depends on a particular subject, or maybe it depends on a particular like agent or a particular mind. And so when we say that morality is subjective, even under your view, when we say under your view morality is subjective, all that means is that it depends on some subject. In this case, the subject being God.
Yeah, but his nature has that establishes the object. Like you know Platonism. Okay, like Plato's objects.
Sure.
Yeah, like the problem I have with that is that like if morality or justice, for example, is grounded in just merely objects, then why am I obligated to obey those objects if those objects are not just in the first place?
That's the only way that it would be objective, right? Mm-hmm. If it didn't depend on a subject.
Well, also, yeah, okay, to be clear, this can be run against like every single moral system, right? Like, why does God saying it's wrong mean that I'm somehow obligated to follow that?
Well, because he's the standard. Like, the book has to stop somewhere.
And why is God being the standard mean that I'm somehow obligated to follow that?
Well, that's what we mean by good. You got to stop what we mean by good somewhere, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah. So we would just say that the place where we stop and like what good means, I mean, for me, it would just be like the objective standard of empathy.
But if it's objective, it cannot be from contingent human being. It must be an
emergent property from like the dialectical process.
What do you mean? Like, are you saying evolution grounds morality, or
no?
Bro's a Marxist.
No, what I'm saying is that the grounding for morality comes from empathy, and empathy is just going to be a necessary precondition for rational dialogue.
But why empathy?
Because empathy is required to see other people's perspectives, and seeing other people's perspectives is necessary for claiming that we've arrived at rational rules of morality. Like, you need to be open to other people's objections about how certain actions are going to affect them if you were to take that action. And if you're open to other people's perspectives, truly deeply open to it, and you attempt to see it from other people's perspectives, truly openly and genuinely attempt to see it from the perspective, then you're using your empathy, which means that in order to be rational, you're going to need to use empathy.
Okay. Well, I agree with all that you just said. I absolutely agree. Empathy is good. But I guess my question is, no, wait, hold on. My question is that just your opinion, or is that beyond your opinion?
I mean, if you were to reject that, you would be illogical. So no.
What do you mean? If I disagree with you, then I'm illogical?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Because in order to arrive at rational moral conclusions, you need to presuppose empathy. Otherwise, like, you can't be rational if you're ignoring other people's objections and counter arguments, right? Like, you need to be open to other people's objections. The objection of the other needs to be your starting place in order to have a rational moral discourse. So if you're ignoring the rational appeal of the other, then your conclusions can't, by their very nature, be rational.
But that's you saying that, like, if somebody were to say the opposite, would they be wrong?
Yeah, they would. Yeah.
So in a hypothetical world, if everybody said the opposite of what you just said,
yeah, they would be wrong. Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, all of them would be wrong. Yeah.
Okay. So therefore, the standard cannot be grounded in subjects then.
No. Wait, did you hear what I just said? I said, yeah, they would all be wrong, right? So it's not grounded in subjects, exactly, right? So it's grounded in something else. Specifically, it's grounded in rationality and rational moral discourse. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I agree. So the next question is, where are those things grounded in if it's not subject?
Yeah, I just told you. Yeah, rational moral discourse. That's what it's grounded in.
Rational moral discourse, and like, what grounds that?
Yeah, just the fact that in order to engage in a rational moral discourse, you need to see things from other people's perspectives. Otherwise, you're ignoring other people's perspectives, which is irrational, right? Like, you can't claim to be rational if you're ignoring an entire side of the argument.
Yeah, okay. Wait, hold on. You would agree, okay, morality is not subjective. You would agree with that right now?
I don't even really know what that means.
So like, I'm trying to.
So morality, or so empathy isn't like a proposition. So I think it's kind of weird to talk about it in terms of like subjective or objective.
I mean, I'm trying to word this correctly.
It's like a cognitive facility or a cognitive faculty. Sorry, but no, I don't know.
Like my point is that, like, our epistemology doesn't affect what is right and wrong, because I think right and wrong is the ontological status, which is objective, that's basically my point.
I don't think that's true at all, right? Like, I think that when we engage epistemologically with each other, we're presupposing specific norms, and these norms are the foundation of morality.
But are you saying that we make morality?
That morality is intersubjective, that it is an emergent thing. So it's not just like whatever people say is good, but rather that you need to be seeing things from other people's perspective in order to arrive at rational morality, which means that the grounding for morality is going to be rational epistemology.
Well, but are you saying epistemology affects the ontology of what is true? Because what you just said there is a truth claim, right? And if that's a truth claim, then no epistemology can affect it.
Well, of course. Wait, so there are truth claims that can be made about different epistemologies. And certain epistemologies, specifically like discourse epistemology, like pragmatist epistemology, presupposes like an argumentation process. And in order to engage in argumentation, there's like specific norms that you need to follow. One of the norms that you need to follow when you're arguing with people is that you need to try to see it from their perspective if your goal is to be rational. If your goal isn't to be rational, then go ahead. You can make as many irrational moral claims as you'd like, but when your goal is rationality, empathy is indispensable.
But why is the goal rationality? Who said?
Well, so yeah, I mean, if you want to make irrational moral claims, that's fine. You're just wrong, I guess. If the person I'm talking to doesn't care about rationality, then there's really nothing to talk about.
No, like, what I'm getting at is that, like, are you saying that epistemology or like we make logic, or like we make what is rational? Is that what you're trying to say?
So what is moral, the foundational bedrock of morality, comes just from the fact that we need to hear other people's perspective, that there's a value that is presupposed in all rational dialogue, and that value is empathy. We need to see things from other people's perspectives. That's empathy. That means empathy is a transcendental, objective moral standard.
And you would say that truth claim that you just made is not just your opinion, but it's
true, right? Like if you
beyond
reject
subject.
it, you're illogical. Yeah. If the entire world rejected it, they would be illogical. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not subjects who grounds those moral laws.
I think it's grounded in the epistemology itself.
Well, epistemology is a subject, so that's what epistemology means.
Yeah, sure. So, but
Wait,
regardless,
so
even
which
if
is it?
everyone, because everyone can be engaging in like a faulty epistemology and they would just all be wrong.
Yeah, of course, we can all be wrong, but I think the question is not can we be wrong, but what is the most reasonable, true beyond a reasonable doubt is most reasonable. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's
what
going
is
to
most
be
reasonable?
listening to other people's perspectives. So, thus, empathy is the transcendental moral standard.
Yeah, so my question is that what's the grounding of it?
It's transcendent, so discourse itself is the grounding of it.
Discourse of that.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So what grounds it is just the goal of arriving at rational conclusions. When you have that goal, there's like better ways and there's worse ways to achieve that goal, arriving at rational conclusions. The better ways to achieve this goal are going to involve empathy because you're going to be trying to see things from other people's perspectives.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you just said, but I'm just trying to figure out if we have a correct understanding that like you are saying that it is not grounded in subjects, correct? Like, I just want to make that clear.
I mean, it's kind of hard to place this morality. What I would say is that this morality isn't really like objective or subjective. It's transcendent. So it's kind of hard to ground or put into like one of those categories.
Well, transcendent leans towards object because that's what it goes beyond the subject's epistemology.
Sure. Yeah, then we can say it's like grounded in the object of arriving at rational conclusions.
And let me make a case similar to it. So, do you know the famous existence proof thing?
No. Go. Yeah. What is it?
Okay,
Existence proof.
So it basically goes like this. You cannot prove your existence because in order to prove your existence, you would have to exist to prove it. So your existence is assumed by good reason because you see the world and you have good reason to believe that you're not in the matrix or anything. But you can be. But the question is not can be from a finite perspective, but what's most reasonable. That's
Wait, what? I have no idea what you just said.
Okay, let me slow down. So you cannot prove you exist because you would have to exist to prove it.
I reject this. No, I don't think that's true.
Why?
Because
why do you think
so there's specifically because when we have things like ideas, we have direct access to experience, and our experience is going to imply an experiencer. So we can reason just from an experience to the fact that there is an individual experiencing. Thus, we would demonstrate the existence of an experiencer.
But before we can even reason, we would have to exist in order to even have that capacity, right?
I don't necessarily think so.
Well, I mean, you have
like,
to
I
be
don't
born.
think you. I don't think you need to presuppose that you. So in like actuality, you would need to exist in order to do this, but I don't think you need to presuppose that in order to reason there.
Well, I mean, there was a point of time where you had no capacity to reason, right? But you definitely need born. Like when you're a baby, like when you're 1 year old,
Maybe,
you haven't really.
Although I do
yet.
think, I mean, I obviously think that you could probably reason as a baby, even so.
But the point here is that like your reasoning doesn't make you exist. You exist, therefore you can reason. That's the point.
Sure, yeah, but then you can epistemologically verify your existence, so that's fine.
Oh yeah, but regardless of your verification, the verification doesn't make the ontological status true. Like the ontological
sure, yeah.
status.
Oh no, I agree. I agree that your existence is going to precede your reasoning, sure, but you can still prove that you exist.
Well, not really. Here's why. Because
well,
like
yeah, really.
in order
I'll
to
just give you the argument. And so, premise one. if you have direct access to an object, then you can know like you can know the truth of that object's existence. I have direct access to ideas and experience, therefore I can know that experience exists. That would be the first conclusion. Then the second conclusion, if I know that experience exists, then I know that there is an experiencer. I do know that experience exists because of the first part of that. Therefore, I know that there's an experiencer. Thus, I exist. There you go. There's the proof. What premise? Wait, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What premise of that do you reject?
Can you go back to premise 2 that you just said?
Premise 2 of the that I'm having an experience?
Yeah, like can you phrase that again? Like
I'm having an experience. It's brute. Like I'm not. If you don't understand what it means to have an experience, then I mean, like maybe you're just like a pea zombie, right? Like I don't know how to like just the feelings that we feel, like the phenomena that we feel.
But in order for you to even start to experience, you would have to be in reality or exist.
Wait, but which
first.
premise do you reject? You're making an epistemic claim. I'm giving you an epistemic argument that demonstrates my existence. What premise do you reject?
If I'm not mistaken, probably one of your last ones.
Okay, well, let's go premise by premise, and we can do that. Do you agree that if I have direct access to an object, if I'm directly acquainted with an object, then I can know with certainty that that object exists?
If you have, can you give me an example?
Yeah, when I'm feeling happy, I feel happy.
That's just like a tautology, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tautology, yeah. So to reject this would be like foundationally illogical, yeah.
Okay, what's your next premise?
Wait, so you agree with the first premise, that if I have direct access to an object, then I can know that it exists. The second premise is that I have direct access to my own experience.
You have access to your own experience. I mean, you are what you are going to experience. So, I mean, okay.
So you agree.
Yeah.
So then conclusion, my experience exists. An experience exists. So if an experience exists, then it is experienced by an experiencer. Do you agree with that?
Experience exists and experienced by the experiencer.
Yep.
Yes, it sounds okay. Yeah. What's
and then so the last conclusion that we reached with the first argument is that experience exists. So then we would come to the conclusion that an experiencer exists.
Experiencer exists. Yeah, but the thing is, you would have to.
You accepted
your
all the
first
premises. It follows a valid inference rule. You've conceded that we can epistemically arrive at the truth that we exist.
No, I'm not saying that you cannot. I'm not saying that you cannot show beyond a reasonable doubt, but I'm saying you cannot prove otherwise. You cannot prove you're in a matrix, because to prove it, you would have to be outside the matrix.
Icon, if you were in a matrix, would murder be okay?
How would I know that?
That's what I'm asking you.
Well, the matrix, you have no free will, so I mean, what's about okay and not okay?
So look, so if you're making the argument that you can't prove you're in the matrix, well, suppose that we are in a matrix, then your whole moral argument falls apart. So instead, let's suppose that we're not in a matrix, because that's the only way that you can make a moral argument to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, it's a reasonable position. Not like it's more reasonable to think we're not in the matrix, right? We have no good reason why. That's from a finite perspective.
Do you know what the difference between an elm tree and a spruce tree is?
What?
No, I just want to know, like, do you know the difference between an elm tree and a spruce tree?
Sorry, I don't study trees, but...
No, yeah, that's totally fine, right? But do you think that there is a difference between these things?
I mean, if they have different names, I assume so, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Why? And that proves that we're actually not in like some solipsistic hypothesis, right? Because if we were in like a solipsistic hypothesis, then all that would exist is our mind. But our mind can't tell the difference between like a spruce tree and an elm tree. I can't tell the difference between these things. But nevertheless, a distinction between these things does exist, meaning that it needs to come from somewhere external, which means an external reality must exist. An external reality where these concepts are different must exist. So that just on that basis, we can defeat the skeptical hypothesis.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if you guys are understanding what.
Yeah, we can defeat the matrix hypothesis just like that.
Well, okay. Let me put it in another way that you guys may understand more simply. Like, okay, you cannot prove reason by reason because that's circular. You would have to assume reason because that's the most reasonable thing for us to do because it works. We use that, but you cannot prove reason.
I'm sorry. How did you determine that it's the most reasonable thing for us to do?
Well, I mean, we use our senses. We're trusting our senses and intuition, but we don't make it true.
So
Okay.
you just presuppose all these things are true?
Okay, sorry. It is possible that reason doesn't work, but that's not the question. The question is not, is it possible? The question is, what's most reasonable using our intuition? So we can be in the matrix, but it's not reasonable.
Yeah, wait. So I think that this is like just a big assumption, right? I think that all the laws of logic are just going to be vacuously true, or not vacuously true. They're going to be trivially true just based on the definitions, right? Like we could just draw out like a truth table for the law of non-contradiction and get really clear on what we mean by a proposition and not and equals, like equivalent to and false. Like if we just lay out all the definitions, it's just going to trivially follow, which means that you actually can prove all of these things trivially.
But your ability to prove presupposes your existence. You know, you see the circularity I'm trying to point out here? Like,
I don't think that it needs to presuppose your existence, right? We can just, these things, even if I didn't exist, the laws of logic would still be trivially true.
Yeah, because it's an object, but for the subject to even try to prove their own existence, they would have to
wait, but
exist.
so we acknowledge that it's like going to be trivially true, right? It's just going to follow directly, right? Like if we have access to the inference rule that A is A, like if we can reason through tautologies, then trivially we're going to arrive at the truth of reason.
But are you calling that a proof?
Yeah. Well, it's, I mean, if you call like A is A a proof, right? Like it's a zero premise proof.
Like, okay, I think it's just a nuance of our language semantics here, because I'm not saying that you cannot prove like A equals A or anything. What I'm saying is that you cannot prove beyond all absolute certainty with the reason that you cannot prove reason by reason.
Epistemology doesn't care about like certainty. Epistemology cares about knowledge, so that's not really a problem.
So yeah, so we agreed then that the best thing we can do is not absolute certainty, but what's most reasonable beyond a reasonable doubt.
Oh, I don't know if that follows. Well, I think that we could, you know, we don't. I just don't care about certainty, right? Like certainty doesn't mean anything to me. What matters to me is knowledge.
Well, how would you define knowledge?
We could say a true belief that was arrived at via like true belief or like reliable true belief gathering mechanisms.
But belief doesn't make things true, right? Belief is what interacts with.
You need to arrive at the belief via some like causal chain. Yeah.
So there must be an ontological entity of truth there already for belief to even interact with it, right?
I'm a deflationist about truth, so this ontology talk is going to be weird.
Sorry, well, maybe I have to use another word. But what do you mean? Like,
so I don't think saying like this is true actually means anything, right? Like I think saying like snow, it is true that snow is white is the exact same as saying snow is white. I don't think that adding like, is true really adds anything.
I have to jump in here, if only because I think that this particular piece of the conversation is going nowhere, when instead we should get back to the question about what the nature of God is, because that was the original point, and now it seems like Icon, you're kind of just like trying to pick apart the words to avoid the question.
Well, the point here is that like things like morality, truth, rationality is independent of subjects. That's my whole point.
So is it independent of God?
No, God is the only
subject.
Wait, hold on. God is the only subject that grounds these objective things.
Oh,
then they're not objective.
Yeah, then they're not objective. Yeah, you said they need to be independent of subjects, but they're dependent on a subject in your worldview.
Let me be more accurate. Subjects that are contingent.
Oh, okay. So I mean, that might be fine, but then you're still accepting that morality is subjective. You just think that it's necessarily subjective, but okay.
No, like with God, right? When we say he's a subject,
it's subjective on God.
Hold on.
Fine.
Hold on.
God,
when we say God's the subject, we're talking about the attributes he had, like mind, emotion, will, and personhood, because we have persons, so we reason back to personhood, which is God. So he has all these attributes, and then these attributes are objective objects, like derives from his nature because he has personhood. That's why we call him a subject. So he has these attributes, but it's a different thing. Like it's not subjective. Like
it just sounds like special pleading. Am I wrong here,
No.
Ian? Is that am I just not understanding?
Yeah, right. Like it's like morality can't possibly be grounded in a subject except the subject that it's grounded in.
It's a different category because suppose morality is just objects then.
Look. So objective means that it's grounded in objects. Subjective means that it's grounded in subjects. Which one is it? Unless you think there's a third category of thing.
The difference is that thing that has been grounding in also possess the quality of subjectiveness, but it is a different category. You got to split it out.
So what's the other category besides object and subject?
Okay, think of God as a set, right? Just think of a set in your mind. God has these attributes of personhood, which makes him the subject, but
Right.
he establishes the object, like truth and
Wait. So
morality.
Do you agree that there are only two kinds of things? There's subjects and objects.
Yeah.
Okay. So which one is God?
God is an entity that has possessed subjects, but when
are those two categories of thing, are they exclusive? Can you be both a subject and an object?
No, but God is not an object.
Okay. So and do they cover all possible cases?
What do you mean cover all possible cases?
Are all things either subject or object?
All things? No, like they can be they can have a mix, right? Like there's objects.
That's what
in the
I'm
world,
asking. Can you give me an example of something that's both a subject and an object?
Well, no, because you're either a
Okay.
subject or an object, but the entity
So it seems like all things are either subject or object in this kind of reductive view. And God must be one of them, and you're saying that God has the qualities of subject, which means that God is a subject and not an object, and so now you're stuck with God with anything deriving from God being subjective.
And I made the case that God is the only subject that can establish these object things.
Okay, that's special pleading.
Yeah, wait, why?
What do you mean special pleading?
Why? Justify it. Why?
Because all subjects after him is contingent.
Well, so
But
wait, why
God
is him
is
being
first
necessary
cause.
mean that he can ground these things, but all the other subjects can't?
Because they're not necessary.
And yeah, well, that's the claim, right? Why does that mean that none of the other subjects can ground it?
Because they're not necessary. Like
Well,
if
you're
he's
just repeating the
necessary
claim
by
again.
definition.
Like you just say the claim a whole bunch of times. Why? Why does it follow from that?
Well, I mean, if you're contingent, then are you necessary?
You're just gonna repeat the claim again.
Mm-hmm.
You have to justify it.
What kind of justification do you need?
It's up to you, big dog.
Like, okay, for the sake of argument, let's say let's try to have a middle ground here. Would you guys agree that at least morality is objective?
No.
Wait. Why are we pivoting?
I just said that we cannot come to an agreement there, so let's try to come to the middle ground.
I actually have a question for you. You said that God establishes truth. Prior to God establishing truth, was it true that God existed?
What do you mean by prior?
You said that God establishes truth. Prior to God establishing truth, like it could be like causally prior, whatever prior to God establishing truth. Was there like a specific event where God established truth?
I'm sorry to do this again to you again. Like last time I said that there's a difference of priors, right? There's ontological priority and chronological
It
priority.
could be whatever priority you want it to be. It could be temporal
Ontological
priority,
priority.
ontological priority,
Ontological priority.
Yeah, so ontologically prior to God establishing truth, was it true that God existed?
You cannot think of chronological terms. It's like asking.
It's not.
when
You said
did-
that. Hey, we're using your terms. You agreed to the term.
Ontologically prior to truth existing, to God establishing truth, was it true that God existed?
But you're assuming a when, correct?
No. A prior.
Because you're. Yeah, prior.
Ontologically prior.
Ontologically prior. Okay, think of a person holding a book, right? The book is ontologically dependent on the person holding it. So that's what we mean by ontologically prior. It's a necessary thing for.
So ontologically prior to God establishing truth, was it true that God existed?
Yeah.
So
Because
So then we don't need God to establish truth because truth exists ontologically prior to its own establishment.
well, God has always existed. So you're still thinking of a chronological sequence.
I'm not, right? Like this is all metaphysically prior. So truth existed metaphysically prior to God establishing truth. We have a lot of other guests though, so I appreciate you
Alright,
coming
we'll move
up
on,
here,
Aid.
but we will move on to the next one. The next one's TKO Beaver.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Icon. It's
Yep.
just, it was going nowhere for a long time, it seemed.
Yep. Hey, what's up? How's it going, TKO Beaver?
Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry to keep you waiting. Yeah,
Yep.
we can hear you all right. How are you?
No, you're totally fine. That was a hugely interesting conversation. I was very glad to hear that. So, actually, I had a quick question for you guys. You seem to be very knowledgeable about a wide variety of subjects. I was wondering if you're familiar with the Kalam cosmological argument. There was a problem
Yeah.
I had with that.
Everyone here, yes. Everyone here is familiar with
Yeah.
that.
I'm very new to this. I hadn't heard you all before.
Okay.
Well, I suppose it would be fair to ask first, what do you all think of it? Do you think that it's a valid argument?
It's
Do you
terrible.
think
It's valid. It's
horrid.
not sound.
Which part of it particularly stands out to you as not being sound?
Both premises.
Yeah, both. But right, like,
Everything which begins to exist has a cause.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about that in particular struck you as being unsound?
I mean, what's the argument for it, right?
Well, what's the argument for it? I
Yeah.
think that it was assumed that if premise one is true, then it necessarily follows. So
Well, yeah, absolutely. If premise if premise 1 is true and premise 2 is true, then yes, the conclusion follows. That's what it means for an
Right.
argument to be valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is that at least I will. I don't know about the other two fellows here, but I will certainly ask for an argument for both premises.
Yep.
I'm not just going to blindly accept them.
Yep.
Is it fair to say that if we weren't able to conceive of an exception to the rule, that it would be acceptable to act as though it were true?
Wait, so are you saying
No.
like a conceivable upset? Like all we need to do is like imagine something happening, like something coming into existence without a cause?
No,
Because I can certainly
well,
imagine something coming into existence, but if what you're asking is to name an example, then there's going to be like a parity argument that defeats it. The parity argument being at the exact same level of evidence with the exact same supporting argument that all things that come into existence have a material cause.
Okay. Could you? I'm a little bit dumb. Would you mind breaking
Yeah.
that down for me?
So typically the justification that people are going to present for the first premise that all things that come into existence have a cause, typically the justification for this is like, think of all the things that have ever come into existence. All these things had a cause. Therefore, we can like inductively conclude that all things have a cause. But when I think about all things that have come into existence, they all have specifically a material cause, which would indicate that all things that come into existence have a material cause. Which means that we would conclude under the exact same level of evidence that all things that come into existence have a material cause, which means we would conclude that God doesn't exist.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Was that confusing?
No. That I suppose, yeah. I never really considered the material element of that, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The part that I used to get hung up on, in particular, was like the implication of the infinite regress if you don't have some sort of beginning.
Sure. I mean, yeah, we can go. So now that we've established that like the premise 1 doesn't work, let's say premise 1 does work. What's the problem with infinite regress?
Well, it just seems to me as though if we were to say that it is unbelievable that God created the heavens and the earth and all of that kind of stuff, as a result of it being, let's say, absurd, it doesn't seem any less absurd to me to suggest that based on infinite regress, I would have assumed that we would have seen an infinite number of events occurring that were identical to this one.
So the problem with this argument is that what you need to establish is that it is necessarily true that an infinite regress is impossible. In order for the premise to go through, the second premise that the universe began to exist, you need to demonstrate necessarily that this is true, which means there can't possibly be an alternative. So if you're just saying like, well, you know, it's one possibility and there's other possibilities, then that just kind of defeats the argument.
Could you break that down for me?
Yeah, sure.
It necessarily
I'm
defeats
sorry if
the
I'm
argument if it was conceivably possible that infinite regress occurred,
So-
ergo it's a valid alternative.
your conclusion isn't possibly God exists. Your conclusion is necessarily God exists, which means that both of your premises need to have the necessary, like the necessity operator to them. It necessarily needs to be true that all things that begin to exist have a cause, and that necessarily it needs to be true that the universe began to exist. If it is not necessarily true that the universe began to exist, then the argument doesn't work.
Do you think that, am I right in understanding that you don't believe the universe had a beginning?
I don't think it did, but I mean,
Okay.
yeah. So
I
all
can see why that
need
wouldn't be an
to-
appealing argument then.
Yeah. I think, and
I mean,
that's-
like even more than that though. Like it's not even like even if no one here had like firm beliefs one way or the other about whether the universe had a beginning, the burden is on the person making the claim to show that it must have had a beginning.
Mhm.
Yes. Well, that was where the infinite regress kind of stuff got into it for me, because I was and maybe Dr. Blitz, you have some more insight on this, because I was given to understand that you have some insight into thermodynamics.
I do.
Yes. I've only just become aware of you all today, so I was.
No, it's fine. I'm not. Nobody's upset with you. You're great.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Do you think the universe is a closed system or an open one?
I don't think that notion is like well defined when applied to the universe. And the reason I say that is because we define an open system as a system in which energy can flow in and out of it from some external system.
Yes.
And we say that, and we define a closed system as a system in which energy and matter and stuff cannot flow in and out from some external system. But if the universe is the entire system, there's no external system to refer to. So it's kind of like it's not really a notion that applies to the sum of everything. It's something that applies to subdivisions of the universe.
Maybe that was a fundamental misunderstanding on my part then, because I interpreted that because there is no external system to which the universe refers, it's therefore a closed system.
I mean, if you want to define a closed system as just like if you want to include that in your definition, sure. But then the kind of the consequences of how we usually think of closed systems, those consequences may no longer apply. For example, it may not be the case that energy is always conserved in a closed system once you include the universe as a closed system.
I suppose there's no way to test it, so fair. But I suppose if one were to assume that the rules that we are observing here did apply, I think it would follow that you wouldn't end up with an infinite regress situation, in as much as anytime that you're applying energy in a closed system, it becomes more entropic and not less. You wouldn't expect to see the universe that we have. So I would have assumed, on the premise that the universe was a closed system, it would imply that the universe had a beginning.
So statements about entropy rely on this notion of a closed system where you have no like the energy is fixed in the system, and it is disconnected from the external world. Like the notion of entropy as we kind of define it, or rather the notion of the second law of thermodynamics being that the entropy always or never decreases in a closed system, might just not apply in our universe, to the universe as a whole. Just because of the way that we define things like closed systems and the way that we define energy and things like that.
Is it true then that the Kalam cosmological argument is more or less persuasive depending on your definition of whether or not the universe is a closed system, or whether entropy applies within a closed system, that kind of thing?
The cosmological argument is essentially convincing to nobody who's familiar with cosmology.
Okay.
And when I say cosmology, I mean like the scientific field. Just because there's so much that we don't know about the way the universe behaves. There's so much that we don't know about how the universe formed. It's based off of like neoclassical, like Aristotelian notions of, cause and effect and infinities and like it's there's a reason. So you know who William Lane Craig is, right?
I do.
So there's a reason why he has to say Einstein was wrong in order for his argument to work. Like the position he holds is that Einstein's relativity is just incorrect. And he has to hold that position for the Coulomb cosmological argument to work.
Okay. That's very interesting. Are there good, because I don't want to waste all of the viewers, so I'm sure that there are other people who also had inquiries about that. I just was curious what you guys thought about it, because I'm not really exposed to, I live in a bit of a Christian bubble. I don't get to hear that much insight into these types of things. Are there good resources that you would recommend I read, or that other viewers read if they wanted to learn more about this from a scientific lens?
So I don't know if this is the best resource, but a good way to get like kind of a modern cosmological rebuttal to the Coulomb cosmological argument is to go watch the debate between Sean Carroll and William Lane Craig. Sean Carroll is a pretty well-respected cosmologist. He's also a philosopher, and he's pretty outspoken atheist as well. And he just had a debate with William Lane Craig. And you might not agree with all of his points, but at least you can then get kind of like the position of more atheistic cosmologist types from that debate.
Okay. All right, that's a good resource. I appreciate that. Is that on YouTube?
Yeah. Just look up Sean Carroll, William Lane Craig, and you'll find it.
Okay.
And one thing I'll say, I was just going to say, one thing I'll say too is when it comes to like the Coulomb or any of the transcendental arguments, is it's going to get to a point where we're going to say something like, well, look at physics, and you're going to have to start denying physics and science. Like in almost all of the arguments, you have to just start denying science.
I'm not smart enough to use the teleological argument.
Good, don't. It's a terrible argument.
Yeah. Well, to be fair,
it's very convincing to people that it already convinces. Let's put it that way.
That's what I'm given to understand. Although I will say, Richard Dawkins had spoken with Justin Brierley on the Premier Unbelievable podcast I think it was like a year and a half ago. And he was asked if there was any argument which would persuade him. And he had said, quote, the teleological argument because it is a good argument, unquote.
I'm pretty sure his position is that it's a good, he said, I think his position is that it's the best Christian argument.
Yes.
Not that it was a good argument.
Course, yeah. He did use the phrase good argument, but I agree. I don't think that he found it convincing ultimately.
Right.
Which, fair enough.
So I can definitely agree that it might be compelling if you like if you just kind of like look at all of these arguments at a surface level. It's kind of like the most intuitive, like, oh, that looks designed, it must be designed. Like it's definitely, like, I can agree that it's definitely intuitive, but once you dig deeper than like the surface, like it falls apart pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think there's lots of arguments like that. Yeah.
All of them, actually. TKO, we're going to let you go because there's somebody who's been waiting for a very, very long time. But thank you for being here so much.
Thank you. Very much pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is Neil. Neil has been waiting for a long time because we've been entertaining kindergartners and high schoolers and babies and children. And, he's going to come and dismantle our positions, I imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, also, we have a super chat. We have a super chat from Garba Gaiman.
Garba Gaiman.
$10 super chat, Canadian. P1, the ability to imagine someone suffering is required for empathy. P2, there is no suffering in heaven. Conclusion, there is no empathy in heaven. True.
True. Hold on. True. You'll have to think
Neil.
about your vile masturbator uncle who's burning in hell in order to practice your empathy.
And you don't want to think about that. Who would want to think about that?
Yeah, of course. Why would you?
Neil, you there?
Neil? Neil.
Neill. Neil.
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 We can't hear you. If you're speaking, we can't hear you. Maybe you should reload.
All what is it? All knees will bend, all shoulders will kneel, or something. I don't know. I don't know. What do the evangelicals say?
Yeah.
I think it was all kneels will drop.
All kneels will drop. There we go. That makes sense. That checks out. All right, let's just wait till Neil comes back.
Hey, what's up, Neil?
Hey, can you hear me now?
We can, Neil. How's it going?
Awesome. So far, so good. I was just scrolling through YouTube and I stumbled across y'all's conversation, and I figured, well, let me just give my 2 cents. I don't think it's going to be more or less better or worse than you guys have probably already heard in your life, but might as well just chip in and add to the conversation, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
What
go ahead.
religion are you?
I would say Christian.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And what's your strongest piece of evidence? Like, what convinces you that Christianity is true?
Well, so that's going to be a mixed bag. It's a kind of a tough, complicated question to approach just because of the way I approach it. I believe that. Well, I was more interested in y'all's arguments against religion or theism as opposed to my arguments
Sure.
for it.
Sure.
But I would also piggyback on the kalam cosmological and the morality arguments that was raised by TKO and the Icon. I feel like I had some questions about y'all's rebuttal to those arguments. Not saying that they were right or wrong, even though I think that they may be more right than wrong. But I just feel like the other parties didn't really give a good rebuttal to,
Sure, yeah,
to
go
the
for
things you
it.
guys were saying. So then the first thing I'll say is to answer your question, I think my personal belief is that I don't think God can be proven or disproven. I think for a religious person to try and demonstrate the existence of God almost kind of goes against God's will in a way, because I don't think he's designed the system for his existence to be flushed out in that manner. I think that, asking somebody, why do you believe in God? It's like asking somebody, why do you love your wife? If I say, well, she cooks me breakfast, oh, well, you can get a maid to cook you breakfast. And then it's like, okay, well, it's just, you can pick apart the argument, but I think that it's more of a subjective thing in the classical sense of the term subjective, where it's just a feeling and an emotion that I have.
Mhm.
And
Wait,
it's
sorry
something
to
that
cut you off. Do you
Mhm.
believe in like heaven and hell?
Yes.
Okay, then I think that this is like super indefensible, right? Like if my eternal soul, if whether or not I get tortured forever depends on whether or not I believe in God, it seems like just a patent absurdity to me that we aren't able to prove his existence. Like if the stakes are so high, why wouldn't it be like the most obvious thing in the world?
Can you cite to where can you cite to what you're talking about as far as being tortured forever?
Wait, so I guess maybe we can get clear. Maybe I'm mischaracterizing your notion of hell. What do you take hell to be, and what do you think the criteria for going there is?
I think hell is has not been. I mean, I say hell has not been really defined in the Bible. From what I read in the Bible, hell is uh, very loosely defined as a place of suffering. I think that nobody really knows what happens in heaven and hell, but if I could give my own interpretation, which I guess is what all Christians are really doing at the end of the day, hell can be best described as the absence of God, right? So, and this is my, for right or wrong, it's just how I take it. But hell, in a sense, is a place of mental suffering, less than a place of actual
Sure.
pitchforks and brimstone, because as you know, hell is an immaterial place, so you don't have necessarily fire and brimstone in a place that's not material.
Okay,
But
that's fine.
uh,
So I think the same problem is still going to apply, right? So if if what's at stake here is infinite suffering, then it seems just incomprehensible to me that God, like we aren't able to prove that God exists. Certainly, if he loves us, he wouldn't want us to, go through infinite suffering and he would want us to form a relationship with him. But I can't
it,
form a relationship with someone if I don't know that they exist, and I can't know that they exist unless their existence is proven to me.
it depends on how you would it depends on how you would define suffering, right? So, is an alcoholic suffering?
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, then why doesn't the alcoholic stop?
Because they're addicted. I think it's like a chemical addiction.
Okay, would you say that the alcoholic is getting something out of his addiction?
Probably. Although I think that
Drunk?
I think at some level, probably what's going to be happening is that it's just a habit, right? Like after you've established a habit, even one that's extremely harmful to you, it can be harder to not do the habit than it is, or it can be harder to not do the habit than it is to do the habit. So
Let me give a better example, because I think alcoholic is somebody who smokes cigarettes suffering.
yeah, like over the long term and probably during the short term, yeah.
Okay. I think like an analogy could be made to somebody who smokes cigarettes, wherein suffering, well, a good quote is that heaven would be hell for an atheist, because he would know that he spent his entire life rejecting the creator that exists, that he now knows exists. I think
So I can assure you, just as an atheist, if I got to heaven, I would be like, man, that sucks that I was wrong. Glad I'm here.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't want to. I'm not. That's just a quote, just to lay the foundation of what I'm
okay.
about to
Well,
say.
it's a bad quote because it's wrong.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm guilty of bad quotes occasionally, but just to make sure I'm responding to what he said, I would say that if heaven is, I don't think heaven is a place of physical suffering as much as it is a place of mental reflection. And if God is like Icon put forth, God is the good. And going back to his morality arguments, I don't think, well, I won't deviate too much, but if God is the good, right, then when you get to heaven, God will draw you closer or further away from him based on how much you align with his thoughts, his beliefs, and who he is and how godly you are in your life. And this is, again, my personal theory, could be right or wrong. But so in a sense, it's similar to how a cigarette smoker could live a more enjoyable life if they didn't smoke cigarettes. But to them, smoking, they enjoy it. It's a habit they like, and they'll suffer the consequences if they so choose. And so,
Look,
Yeah,
are
go
you
for it.
saying that hell is basically just like being a dude who's always on a smoke break? Because if that's what hell is, then I don't think it's like, I mean, I've never smoked before, but if that's what hell is, I can't imagine it's actually that bad.
I think that nobody really knows, at least to my understanding, nobody has a good grasp of what heaven and hell is. And so, if you just ask me my take on it, I don't think it's something that's so severe, like you're going to be hung upside down and suffocated and stabbed for all of eternity. I think it's just more of a place of, mental reflection. If you were a guy who committed a bunch of murders while you were on Earth, and you pass away and you're in this place of reflection, you're going to think back on that and you'll probably think, well, dang, like I messed up. Like I didn't have to do all that. Or you'll be in the afterlife and you'll be like, hey, yeah. And then when you get to the afterlife, you're going to be, in a place with a bunch of murderers and goons. And if that's your cup of tea, then, that's your cup of
But
tea.
wait,
And
but hold
somebody
on,
can,
right? So let's say you're in hell and you're someone who you reviewed the evidence, you looked through it, you tried to see if God was real, but none of the evidence was convincing. So in the end, you came to the conclusion that there wasn't enough evidence to indicate that God is real. I don't think, like, do you think that like the place with all like the murderers and thieves is the right place for you?
No, I think that and again, this is just my interpretation, because I don't think there's a good, and I could be wrong on this. I haven't read any literature that describes hell to a large degree, but outside of just, I think there's one passage that describes it as just being, I don't know, whatever. But either way, to answer your question,
Hold on. Let me give you some descriptions,
sure.
just real fast. So yeah, so Luke describes it as a place of gnashing of teeth,
Hmm.
right? So he states that there will be gnashing of teeth. We get that you're going to be in a lake of fire. We have
Did Luke say that? Or who
Matthew.
said lake of fire? Did Luke say lake of fire?
Well, lake of fire is in Revelations. So we get that in Revelations, where you'll be thrown into a lake of fire for a second death. We get in Matthew, it says, then they will go away to eternal punishment.
Hmm.
We have a Thessalonians, saying eternal damnation, eternal punishment. So it just seems like all these verses. As a matter of fact, Thessalonians say they will suffer the punishment of eternal destruction. So we do get descriptions of what this is.
Well, we get vague descriptions of negative and badness. Like, okay, it's obviously not a good place. It's obviously not being described as a good place, but they're not saying, when you walk into hell, you'll see a sign that says hell, and then as you walk past the entry desk, a demon's gonna bring you in and then start stabbing you. I think when we start going into, I don't think it has been described in a way more than general badness, right? And I think
So
that
let me
leaves
ask
open
you this, Neil. Let's say that you were sentenced to eternal badness. Is that justified for any finite amount of crimes that you may have committed, including just not believing in a thing?
I think it depends on the badness. Like, for instance,
let's say that it was stubbing your toe forever.
I don't even know. I think that doesn't answer. I think, for instance,
it's a very minor bad thing, stubbing your toe.
Yeah,
but if it was that forever, then I don't know. It seems worse than just not believing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely worse than not believing. I think.
Or let's say it's just being sad forever. That just seems like a horrible punishment for, not believing when you weren't given the evidence for it.
Like at the point in time when you're saying point blank, God is not provable, but it's like so high risk, right? Like in infinity bad, like some bad forever, even if it's like a small bad, the fact that it's forever means that the magnitude is infinite. So an infinite punishment for the crime of not believing in a thing that can't be proven, that seems like an absurdity.
I can definitely entertain the back and forth, but I think to get to the rule of where I think you guys are going, I think the guy who makes the game gets to decide how the rules play out. I think that, if
then he's just an asshole.
Yeah, then he's not all good.
That's very possible. If I have a kid, and I tell my kid, hey, don't eat these cookies, and the kid eats the cookies, and then I give the kid a spanking. You could come in and say, "Oh, spanking is too tough, man. You should have gave him a timeout."
Yeah, and you would lose custody.
Man. You should have just fair enough. And then if I give him a timeout, you can say, "Well, timeout is too tough, man. You should have just gave him a stern talking to." You can always argue about the range of consequence for any given act, but I think that at the end of the day, that the honest answer to the question is, it really doesn't matter if you think it's right or wrong, because it's not your decision to make. I think, you can say that God is heavy-handed with his punishments. I mean, the guy sent a flood to flood the entire earth. I mean,
yeah, you're right. He did. Well, I mean, I don't think that happened, but you think that happened.
I don't think it entirely either. But I think the story is that he's done worse things in the past, and so, I mean, at the end of the day, it just is what it is. I mean, he's allowed to.
He's supposed to be perfectly just and merciful and loving, isn't he?
Yeah, a father is just. A father is just.
Look. If
justice
you were
and loving does not always go hand in hand.
So Neil,
justice is putting a guy in prison for the rest of his life. Loving would be letting him off the hook.
Neil, so let's say that you're a parent, right? And your kid steals a cookie from the cookie jar. Is there any context in which you could say that you'd be loving or just if you then sentenced him to death for it?
Yeah, no, that's heavy-handed for sure.
No, is that loving or just or merciful? Do any of those adjectives match that punishment?
It depends, right? So, for instance,
what does it depend on?
I can give you an example.
Give me an example. Hold on, just to be clear, give me an example in which it is either just, merciful, or loving to sentence the child to death for stealing a cookie. Give me an example of that.
I'll give you an example of a heavy-handed punishment, and they're because it's an exaggerated example for sure, right? So I can give you an example of a heavy-handed punishment.
It's an exaggerated punishment for the crime of not believing, right? Like infinite bad does not fit the crime of, I wasn't convinced.
Well, I can let me give my example, and that may help.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so in I forget what country it is. I want to say Dubai or something like that. It's and they're implementing similar things in Nigeria in the what is it, There's a Enugu Center, the Enugu state of Nigeria. They're implementing something very similar, but they're implementing very, very harsh punishments for very, very modest crimes, right? So, for
Yeah, and
instance,
I would
if
say
you're
that's
caught,
not just, nor is it merciful.
well, hold on.
Well,
So,
and real quick, when the,
may I-
well,
Wait,
well,
wait. I'm
may I
sorry.
please
Let him
finish?
finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
okay, I'll let him finish.
Okay, and then you'll go right after. I promise. I'm almost done. And so, what we see happen, for instance, Enugu was a very, very dangerous city, a very, very dangerous place to be, and similar with other countries. And when they started implementing very, very harsh penalties and harsh punishments, like for instance, if you're caught stealing, they'll chop off your hand. What you see is the recidivism rate and the rate of crime drop substantially, damn near to zero.
Wait.
And so,
So
you know,
So I want you to imagine, let's say the kid steals the cookie from the cookie jar. So you fucking like knee him in the ribs like 20 times. And then he like never steals a cookie from the cookie jar ever again. Was that a just punishment?
probably not. Probably
Yeah.
not. From my perspective, probably not.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we can conclude that just because it's effective at like reducing recidivism doesn't mean that it's just.
Very
And
nice.
Also, keep in mind that eternal damnation can have no effect on recidivism because you don't get to be
Yeah.
free afterwards to have the chance to do it again.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
But I would also
and the
say
point that I wanted, well, I was
No,
going to say the
continue.
point that I wanted to make too is when we use these human comparisons,
Yeah.
we're not God. I'm not all knowing, all powerful. I can't do other than humans can't do other than like pass laws. But God, maintaining the omni properties, can do other than.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm. That's fair. That's a very fair point.
So
I would-
let's remember that as we're going forward with these hypotheticals.
he definitely has options, and I think now I would say that on one hand, it's a hard argument to have because we know that hell is generally a bad place. We don't know the range of bad in there. We don't know what it's like. We don't know if it's a self-inflicted gnashing of teeth, such as, oh man, I messed up. I made a mistake. Like, sometimes you feel guilt or you feel bad about a decision you've made in the past. We don't know the extent of the badness, so it's hard to know whether or not it is heavy-handed or if it is just or if it is too extreme. It's easy to say, well, any kind of badness inflicted over an eternal period of time is just too much, and that may or may not be true. I don't know. I don't have the information to argue that point. But I also think that like Cyber said, okay, well, God has alternative means of addressing the issue. But I also feel like at a certain point, if we are in the business of arguing, if we've accepted the premise just for the sake of argument that God does exist, but that He has other methods of addressing these issues, then I think if we're going to accept the premise properly, we also have to accept that perhaps we lack the understanding to properly critique the punishment that's being doled out or the options that are at play. I think that, if we've accepted the premise that there's a all powerful, all knowing, all intelligent, omnipotent, omnipresent being who's making these decisions that we don't understand, it may be less that the decisions are wrong, and it may be more that we just don't understand the decisions. And maybe with time or with understanding, we'll grow to understand the utility of those decisions. It's a possibility. I'm not saying right or wrong, indifferent. I'm just saying that it's just interesting how, we've accepted the premise of an all powerful, omnipotent, all everything being, and we're critiquing that being's decisions to dole out uncertain measures of punishment based on analogies to killing a child for eating cookies. I don't. I just think that the premise we got to. If we either fully accept the premise or we just we're
Well,
playing word games.
and I just want to be clear here, right? Like, I think killing a kid for eating a cookie is infinitely more fitting of the crime than torture forever, right? And to be clear, like killing a kid for taking a cookie, that doesn't fit the crime at all. That's like a vast, like huge, massive, disproportionate, like escalation in force relative to the crime. But infinity, like punishment forever is punishment forever, right? Like killing a kid, it's a horrible thing, but it's like finite, right? It's terrible, horrible, huge magnitude. It's finite. torture forever is torture forever. It's forever, which means that it's always going to be like infinitely less proportionate to the punishment. An infinite punishment will never fit any finite crime. It can't, right? If the punishment is infinite but the crime is finite, then it doesn't fit. And if the crime doesn't fit the punishment, then it's not just.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now, if I can retort, I think going back to what I said before, it depends on the punishment and it depends on the severity, and these are things we don't know. But here's a possible a possible situation or a state of events where I can describe a punishment that may jive or may clash against what you're saying. For instance, when I was a little kid, I used to have a hot mouth. And my mom said something or she did something bad to me, and I told my mom I didn't love her. And she cried. And then a month later, same thing happened. And
Eternal punishment.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Now, yes, there was eternal punishment for that. There was, and I'll explain why. A month later, I said it again, and she cried to me, and I went to her and I apologized, and she said, "Neil, if you felt bad the first time, it wouldn't happen the second time." And I still carry that with me today. I feel a level of guilt and shame about the fact that I did that, and I'll feel that shame until I die, and I'll feel that shame even into the afterlife. I'll always feel bad for I'll always feel bad for having done that. Now, can you say, God, why would you put Neil in a situation where he feels bad about his actions? Well, that's a strange argument to make. It's just a strange argument to make, because at the end of the day, if we're saying that people aren't allowed to feel bad about their actions,
that's not what I said.
Well, my point is this: that the gnashing of teeth and the general badness that we're talking about could be a self-inflicted badness where you feel bad about having not believed.
Why would anyone feel bad about not believing the thing that can't be proven?
Well, that's your question. I mean, if you don't feel bad,
why would anyone ever feel bad about that? Like, wow, I was born into like Saudi Arabia where it's 99% Muslim, so then I was Muslim, and it turns out Christianity is true. I'm gonna torture myself for all eternity out of the guilt. What?
Then
you probably won't suffer.
You probably won't suffer that much. You probably won't be. You probably won't suffer that much. Maybe not at all. Right?
Oh, so then they can go to heaven.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the Bible technically says that everybody knows God in their heart. So it's like technically that's the cop out. I don't want to start quoting verses because I know that's one ear out the other. We can.
Well, no. You I actually love that verse. Right? That's a really good verse. Because then that sets you up for like the auto lose, which is just, if God exists, then I know that he exists. I don't know that he exists, therefore God doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. I don't see where you're going.
It's just a basic syllogism, right? You're saying everyone in their heart knows that God exists, but that's not true. I don't know that God exists. I don't believe that God is real. I'm an atheist. Therefore, we would conclude off of that God isn't real, because if he was real, then everyone would know in their hearts that he is real. But I don't know that. I don't think God's real.
I don't think the quote, at least the way I interpreted, or I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I don't think it's saying that everybody knows God exists, of course, because then, I mean, we obviously have non-believers. I think it's something more towards everybody kind of understands, or everybody has seen God to an extent. Not saying that should, but you could argue that me sitting here arguing with you, not trying to get you to believe, but at least having this conversation is evidence, at least in your life, that there's something there. And then when you get to the afterlife, you may think back and look, like going back to what I said earlier, the conversation I had with mom as a kid, that's something that sits with me. I feel bad about it. I don't toil every day like, oh, how could I have said that? But it's a general feeling. So I think that I think we leave out the possibility that hell is a spectrum.
Wait. I'm so sorry. Can we just actually focus on the scripture, right? I don't want to move off the scripture. I think this is like a great piece of scripture because it disproves that like God exists. So I'll just read it. This is Romans 1:18 onward, by the way. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and injustice of those who by their injustice suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. Ever since the creation of the world, God's eternal power and divine nature, invisible though they are, have been seen and understood through the things God has made, so they are without excuse. For though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their senseless hearts were darkened. It says that God's existence is made plain to me. It's not made plain to me. It says that I know God exists in my heart. I don't know that God exists in my heart. It says
I
that I
am
suppress the
telling
truth
you
of
right
God.
now,
I
God
don't
exists.
suppress
Is
the
that
truth of
being
God. I
made
just
plain
don't
to you?
believe in him, right? Like these are all things that the Bible say that are just not true.
I am telling you right now, God exists. Now, would you argue that that has been made plain to you?
You've declared it, but the fact of the matter isn't true, right? Like I could argue to you that Santa Claus exists, but I wouldn't think it's then fair to say that you're suppressing the truth of Santa Claus.
Now, would you not? The fact that the quote is talking about people not believing in spite of the fact of having information of God implies the possibility that you and your situation as we sit here today, it's not, I guess what I'm saying is the quote, the verse is not contradictory by its own nature because it implies the very state of affairs that you are claiming contradicts it. It's saying that people who have been made, people essentially, people to whom God's existence have been made plain, but still choose not to believe, et cetera, et cetera. And you're saying, well, God hasn't been made plain to me, so I choose not to believe. Well, who is to determine what making plain to somebody could be? I don't know. These are things above
If
my
God's
head. So,
existence is made plain, shouldn't you be able to prove that he exists?
brother, that's a question for God. That's a question for God. I think that if you can also quote the passages about having faith and believing, and then even Jesus, when he was dying, said, "Why have you forsaken me?" And so I think that to be able I think, like I said initially, I do not think that there's a state of affairs where somebody can rationally argue the existence of God. I do not think that that's the way the game was set up to be played. I think that, faith and belief is a huge part of, Christian and religious dogma. And if you're arguing for somebody to prove either rationally or apologetically or whatever, of it would almost be ungodly to prove the existence of God because
Why?
if you
That's a
prove
claim.
yeah, it's just if you prove the existence of God, you are thereby removing the backbone of faith and belief and all of that. And that is a huge part of the, religious or Christian
How can I believe in
mythos or
something
dogma.
that can't be proven?
Say it again.
How can I believe in something if I'm not convinced of it?
Are you married?
No.
If you
I
were
am.
married, oh, wonderful. Well, I won't make any assumptions, but do you believe your partner loves you?
Yes.
Can you prove it?
Yeah, I can ask her.
Okay, ask her.
She's in the other room.
What if she's lying to you just to get money out of you?
There's not much money to get out of Blitz.
Oh.
But
No, I mean, like, look. If you're asking for, can we provide evidence for it? Absolutely. If you're asking, can we provide proof for it? Well, probably not. But like, you can only prove mathematical things. So
Yeah.
And yet you're asking me to prove the existence of God.
Evidence.
no, we're asking you to provide
Essentially-
evidence. Provide evidence.
Okay, well, provide evidence. It depends on. I think. Well, I would make a bold assumption.
Hold on. Somebody in the comments just said, "I bet you would cheat, Blitz."
Yeah.
Fuck you. Fuck you, Agent J-Mib.
This is the religion of love, by the way.
Anyway, go ahead.
But I mean, I could attempt to provide evidence. I believe that my safe assumption would be that any evidence I provide would be quickly dismantled and tossed asunder.
And maybe it's not good evidence.
Yeah.
Well, who's to say what good evidence is? I mean, You know, if that's why in the court of law you have a reasonable beyond all reasonable doubt, or well, I mean, I guess that's a terrible example because reasonable doubt, but I guess even in that is the question of whether or not the doubt is reasonable. I mean, you if you walked up to me and said the sky is blue, I can say, yeah, the sky's blue, or I can say, it's not really the sky, it's really the nitrogen molecules that are reflecting back the rays of sun back at the ground is absorbing everything. The blue
Bro
that gets
paid
reflected
attention in
back up.
school. I'm so proud of you, Neil.
But point being is that anything can be dismantled. Anything. You can make any statement right now, and I can give I can try and break it down. But either way,
Look, so Neil, the three of us here are pretty reasonable. Like if you provide what would be considered to most people a compelling case, then it'll be like, yeah, that's a compelling case. Like, you know, if you could provide as much evidence that God is real as we can for, say, the sky is blue, then we'd probably all be Christians.
Yeah, but then that starts to deviate out of the realm of evidence and into the realm of proof.
I'm just asking for evidence in the same way that we have evidence that the sky is blue.
Fair enough. And I think that question is for a man much smarter than myself. I haven't even figured it all out yet, so I'm still trying to understand it. I'm not saying y'all skepticism is not warranted, at least from my perspective. I'm just throwing out words. But I think if we can dive into the morality and the kalam cosmological, and maybe if I can, I guess, try my best to present a better argument than the high schoolers, then maybe I can, be more convincing.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay,
if you're going to do the kalam, what's your argument for P1?
P1, is that the everything that exists as a cause?
Do you want to do moral? Do you want to do the moral argument, or do you want to do kalam?
I like the moral better because the kalam is just,
okay.
I don't even know the kalam that well.
Yeah, let's run it.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay, so as far as the moral argument goes, I can try and pick up where Icon left off, but essentially the way it goes is that, and just boiling it down to its bare bones, without God, there is no objective standard for morality. And so without God, you are left in this kind of place of limbo where you cannot say objectively that an act is right or wrong. You are basically left with a subjective kind of, I feel it's wrong, you know?
Why? Why is that? What does that follow? Why is there no objective standard absent God? Why?
Okay, so when we're speaking about objectivity, we're speaking about something that is not up for question or debate, right? It's something that is external from ourselves and something that is a fact. And so
no, right? Like we can debate like matters of objectivity too, right? So presumably the true theory of physics is going to be objectively true, but like it's still under debate, right? Like they're still debating it.
How would you define objective?
Not indexical to a subject.
Well, I'm not smart enough. What does that mean?
So indexicals are things like the word I or you. These are indexical. When I say I, that refers to a different entity than when Blitz says I or when you say I. I refers to like a different thing. It's indexical. So basically what it means is that objective morality you don't need to specify the subject, whereas subjective morality, you need to specify the subject.
Is that the traditional
yes.
theological or apologetical?
Well, that's the traditional philosophical understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then just to get a feel for the landscape, if I was to say America has not legalized murder, is that an objective statement or a subjective statement?
If what we mean is like right now America has not legalized murder, that would be an objective statement.
Can you please walk me through that just so I understand your definition of objective?
Yeah, right. Like we don't need to reference like any subject here. The truth maker in this case is just going to be the laws that are on the books in America. We just go check, we read through all the laws. We see, well, is murder legal? We see no, and then we come to the conclusion on that basis that that's not a true statement.
Now, when you say truth maker, what do you mean by that term?
Yeah, it's just like a thing. It's like a state of affairs that makes a proposition true.
And so, generally speaking, you're saying that since we are able to reference something that tells us whether or not the statement is true or false, that is what makes it objective. The ability to reference something.
The fact that the thing being referenced is not a subject.
When you say this, the fact that the thing being, I don't understand what that means. Can you explain that? And I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a bad description or anything. I just can't understand it. So I'm trying to make sure I do. The last thing I want to do is mischaracterize what you're saying. So I'm
and
just
I
trying to make sure
appreciate that. I
understand.
appreciate that. So, when it's objective, we don't need to put it in terms of like a subject. Like it's not in terms of like a person or like a mind. But if it's subjective, then it is in terms like a person or a mind, right? Like we would say, Dr. Blitz likes cats. Like Dr. Blitz thinks cats are cool. That's subjective. It's in reference to a subject. But if we were to say cats are cool, and say that that's going to be like true irregardless of what anyone thinks, then that's going to be objective.
Irregardless.
Okay, so
You there? Neil? Did we break him?
Neil, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay. He says, let me restart. I have a hard cutoff in 8 minutes, by the way.
Yeah.
If you guys want to keep going, you absolutely can, but I have to go grab dinner with some colleagues.
After.
Okay.
Maybe, or fuck, should I read? Should I read or stream?
Reading's
Flip a
good.
coin.
Streaming's arguably better. Turns out reading sucks and streaming's fun.
Oh wait, let me get... Neil, are you there?
yeah, hello. Can you hear me now?
Welcome back.
Sorry, I got a phone call, and whenever I get a phone call, it messes with my mic, so I'll have to restart. But so what you were saying is that when it relates to objective versus subjective, it's whether or not it references a subject. So if I was to say the sky is blue, that would be an objective statement for you.
Yep.
If I was to say Neil said the sky is blue, that is subjective because it's referring to something that Neil said.
Yeah.
Well, careful. That one would not be subjective. Neil
thinks the sky is blue is subjective.
Yeah, that might be closer. Because there would be a fact of the matter whether or not Neil actually said that.
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah, I think that there's like some where it gets like a bit blurry. Like it is an objective fact that you do feel this way, but when we're saying like the truth of the matter isn't, I guess like the what's going to make it true, the truth maker in this instance is that you think it, that it's like believed by a subject, whereas the truth maker in objective matters is not that it's like believed by a subject.
Okay, I think I'm understanding. All right. And so then if we were to bring it to the argument of morality, I think that before I make my argument for the objective nature of God's morality, so to speak, I want to first address the fact that, do you believe there can be objective morality, period?
I think that there's good arguments. I haven't heard like, I don't know, probably. I'm ultimately agnostic to it, but I'll defend objective morality.
Okay, can you present an argument or a...
That is burden shifting.
Well, no, not necessarily, because I guess my argument would be this: without God, there is no objective morality. And
What's
then
the
that would
proof
put
of
on
that?
you. Well, the proof of that is that I believe there's no objective morality without God.
That's the claim. What's the proof of that claim?
Let me reword it. I only know of objective morality with God.
Okay.
Without God, I know of no other objective morality. And so I would just like you to, you know, kindly educate me on the possibilities of objective morality without God present, since you are someone who doesn't believe in God, and
Sure.
but you believe in objective morality. So I just want to.
Yeah, and but do we acknowledge that this is like burden shifting, right? That like the argument doesn't like I could have literally no answer to it, and that wouldn't make the argument true.
I believe you're correct. Now, I would say that
Sure. Okay.
assuming that your argument, so if my argument was that, okay, with God there is objective morality, assuming that you can demonstrate that without that there, even with God, there's still subjective morality, I guess we're left in a place, at least for me, we're left in a place where all morality is subjective. And so I would just like to hear that.
Sure.
Now, and the reason I ask, I'm not trying to be unfair or burden shift,
Yep.
but I sense that if I start making my arguments and you give your rebuttals, we may be going down that path for a while. But I am genuinely curious
Sure. Yeah, I
as
got you.
to
Yeah.
okay. And I'm not a disingenuous person.
No, you don't seem like a disingenuous
I'm learning
person.
as far as okay.
Yeah. No, I don't get the impression that you're like a disingenuous person. So I think that one argument that you can appeal to, it's called discourse ethics. It's just that we have specific. So the way we arrive at conclusions is through discourse, through like a rational exchanging of ideas. In order to ensure that this discourse is rational, you need to see things from other people's perspective. That means that if you're like rationally arriving at a true conclusion about morality, you're going to need to see the issue, the morality of it from other people's perspectives, which means that in order to make a rational moral claim, you're going to need to see things from other people's perspectives. That's empathy. When you put yourself in another person's position, that's empathy. So empathy is going to underwrite all rational moral claims, which means that if you attempt to make a moral claim that is unempathetic, then you'll be contradicting yourself. You'll be essentially like forfeiting rationality. You're either you either are open to other people's perspectives, in which case you're using your empathy, or you're not open to other people's perspectives, in which case you're not being rational. So either you're empathetic, or you're irrational. That's kind of the dilemma. So if you're rational, and you attempt to be rational, but you say something unempathetic, then you're contradicting yourself, which means that your attempt at a rational, unempathetic morality would be self-contradictory and thus not rational. It would be illogical. Thus, we can conclude that all rational moral statements are going to be produced via the presupposition of empathy. That empathy is a necessary prerequisite to any and all moral statements.
Now, without that may be true. That may be true, but is that in itself objective?
It's transcendental. It's kind of hard to fit into objective or subjective. There's no world where you could reject that and you're like rejecting that as true.
Well, now does that apply in all realms, even outside of discourse?
Well, if you're not engaging in discourse, then I'm not sure how you're making any moral claim at all.
So then let's say that somebody commits a crime and they get life in prison. Yeah. Has empathy been applied in that outcome or that decision?
Super depends on the crime, super depends on the person.
Mm-hmm. But who is the person? If it depends on the crime of the person, who is the arbiter of whether or not empathy has been properly applied?
Yeah, a deeply empathetic person. So we should be always striving to deepen our empathy, and we can go forth with the knowledge that our claims, our conclusions that we arrive at are going to be rational if they're rooted strongly and deeply in empathy. That if we make sure that all of our claims are rooted in empathy, that we've heard the other side out, that we've heard all parties out, that we've truly tried to see it from everyone's perspective, then the conclusion that we come to is going to be a rational one, even if somebody comes to a different conclusion. There's plenty of scenarios where there isn't like a clear right and wrong answer, and I think that's a virtue of the view, that there's lots of moral dilemmas where the right answer isn't very obvious. I think it's very possible that two moral people could come to a different conclusion about a specific dilemma.
Okay, now that's interesting. Now, under that view, is it more so that if there is a situation where two people are coming up to two different outcomes based on that view, is it because the
Neil,
object?
sorry to cut you off. I do have to run, gentlemen. It was lovely.
Yeah, it was great.
Feel free to continue the conversation, but I
Yep.
do have to run. Thanks for having me. Or
Yeah.
wait, no, it's my show, or at least I'm one of the hosts. Anyway,
Yeah,
later,
appreciate
guys.
it, Blitz.
All right, thank you. Okay, so then under that view, is it that the objectivity of the outcome, I guess, has not been determined yet? And like, I guess what I'm asking is, if we have, let's say there's decision A and decision B, and two people under your worldview of ethics and objective morality disagree on whether or not A or B is the right outcome. Is that because A is actually the right outcome and it's hard to determine which one is which? Or is it because A or B could be the right outcome and it's hard to determine which is which?
I think that there's no limit on empathy, so I think that there's probably some situations, like intuitively to me, there's some moral situations that don't have right answers, where either answer seems like justifiable. So I think that there
Okay.
probably are. So there's some situations where unambiguously, like there is a right thing to do. Many situations like that. But I think that there's some situations where there isn't like obviously a right thing to do.
Now that begs the question, when you say obviously there's not a right thing to do, is there still a right thing to do and it's hard to discern what that thing is? Or is it, I'm trying to figure out, because I guess as I understand objective, right? Objective is factual, right? The same way the sky is blue, water is wet, even though somehow there's a
Yeah.
debate on that. But so is it objective in that same sense to where no matter what the outcome, they're based on the, and in fact, before I start going that deep, when we're talking about a deeply empathetic person, a deeply empathetic person could argue that life in prison is too extreme regardless what the crime is.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, what? Yeah.
I don't know. I think that that's like plausible, right? I think that this is like a thing that rational people could probably rationally disagree about. But then, you know, I think that there's some circumstances where it would probably be a lot more intuitive to say that life in prison is justified than others, right? Like if you're getting life in prison because you murdered like the person who was like domestically abusing you, I probably don't think life in prison is justified in this case. But you know, if you're sentencing someone to life in prison because they like cold-blooded murdered someone, is life in prison like the only fitting punishment to this? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that this is the type of thing that people could disagree on.
Okay. Now, and Cyber, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of go on to that. Is like by us just having this discussion, you know, where all three of us are using empathy by even having this discussion. And I was just going to reiterate something that Ian just said is that like we have like the crime that murder is wrong, and you always assume like there's A or B. But once we actually employ empathy and then we find out the reasonings why, well, that's going to sway things one way or another through rational discussion.
Okay. And I asked the follow up just to get a deeper understanding of what you guys are saying. I think that's an interesting thing. I'll look it up. You said it's called
discourse ethics.
Discourse ethics. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
it should be, you'll probably find it from a dude named Apple. I don't know. I can't pronounce these silly European names. And then there's like Jürgen Habermas. He's the other one who's the original proponent of it.
Okay. Now, just you let me know if this is right or wrong. But when I asked you who's the arbiter of, making these decisions, you said a deeply empathetic person.
Yeah, a deeply empathetic person. Yeah. Or
now,
better yet, like a collection of them. I think a collection of deeply empathetic people. It maps onto an intuition that I have that in some cases there isn't like a black and white right thing to do and wrong thing to do.
Okay. Now, I suspect if I was to peel back the layers, you referring to a deeply empathetic person or a group of deeply empathetic people would be no more objective than me referring to God as being my moral arbiter.
So I would say that specifically the reason why it's going to be more, I guess there's two things, right? If you're saying that there's the possibility of an objective moral standard without God, then the argument from morality just falls apart, like on its face completely. And I could literally say like, yeah, we both have like objective moral standards, and then I could go on to say, and mine is probably going to be much better than yours because of all of like the terrible things God did in the Bible or whatever. So I think that that's like the first thing. But also I do think that mine derives just from rationality and logic, whereas I think yours is a lot more heavily dependent on like a subject.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And I can peel back the layers on that, but I don't want to just be argumentative. I feel like I just
Yeah,
be
that's
being
fine.
argumentative at that
Well,
point.
you're totally fine.
But to make it more productive, I'll move into my arguments for God. Just because I think that's interesting, man. Cool. Okay, so as it relates to the morality argument, as I understand it, or as I would put forth, right? God is and it, man, it gets murky because it depends on how you're defining God. A lot of people, like Dr. Blitz said earlier in the chat, he was like, look, if you're going to define God as the universe, then we don't have a place to go from here.
Yeah.
But so, it depends on how you would describe God. Like, I think we can both agree God's not an old guy sitting in a chair in the clouds with a long mustache.
So just like an
So
immaterial mind that created everything is probably how I would describe it.
Fair enough. And so if we are to, and that brings me back to when you ask for evidence of God, it's something that sparked in my brain, but I'll circle back to that later. But as it goes to the morality argument, I think that at least, bringing up some Bible verses, I got to do it. I'm sorry. But, the Bible says that God made man in his image. Why is that important? Well, because it means that God imbued something in us, part of himself in us. And so we have some kind of relation or some kind of similarity to God in that sense. And so when we're speaking about morality, I think it is almost like the morality that we have, the good and evil that we have, and then even the Bible says we ate from the tree of good and evil. But the good and evil, or the morality that we have in us, if it is given to us from God, right, then God would be that moral arbiter. He would be that truth maker. He would be the thing that decides, right? It would almost us saying that, okay, God says this is right, but I think it's wrong. Wouldn't make sense because, subjective versus objective, at least as I understand it. Now, the question then becomes, where is God getting this stuff from? Is he just
wait, hold on.
Mhm.
How do we get to the existence of God?
Oh no, I can circle. Well, so this isn't necessarily the existence of God. This is presupposing, because my argument is that
Why?
God is the moral.
Well,
Okay,
wait, but if we
so
have like another moral standard, then the argument doesn't work.
I'm not saying God exists because he's the only way we can get to morality. I am saying that God is the only way we can get to objective morality as I understand it. Now, you've provided a separate solution to that, which is by all means, right? But my argument isn't necessarily that God exists strictly because we cannot be moral people without him. I think you can remove the God exists part, and we can just say we cannot be moral people without God. And then that leaves a dilemma of, okay, once we've removed God, what is the incentive to be moral, right?
Are we
You
talking
may
incentive?
Mm-hmm.
So wait. So then this isn't like a claim about ethics. This is like a claim about like pragmatics, right? Like pragmatically, how do we get people to be moral? Well, that's probably going to be like a sociological question, right? Like that's going to be like, well, if we want these outcomes, then the way we incentivize this is by setting up like after school programs, doing like all these things that tend to get people to behave and be moral.
perhaps, and I guess
Yeah, and then and then I was going to say there's another side to that coin as well, is that God gives some pretty atrocious commandments, and ought we be following those today? That's the other bullet you're going to need to bite.
which ones? The thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not sleep? Which commandments were atrocious?
The
Oh,
thou
slavery.
shalt go to the Amalekites and like slaughter their infants.
I guess now we're. I think I think that there are ways the Bible could be read. Right. One way you can read the Bible is that every single word in the Bible is something God is telling you to do. And, so like when it says, hey, these people ate bread, it's like, well, that's all you can eat now, right? Or you can read the Bible in a way to where the Ten Commandments are the Ten Commandments are commandments that are coming from God. Literally, the Bible is saying God came down and gave these 10 commandments. And I think even the Bible is creating a separation between the things that God is saying specifically, the things Jesus is saying specifically, and then the things that everybody else is just saying.
Well, maybe I can read you the verse, right?
Oh, okay, that might help.
Samuel said, so this is 1 Samuel 15, 1 through 3. We could actually just do 3. This is God speaking, by the way. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. So God is just like commanding like the slaughter of infants, which under your morality, you would have to say that this is good. But that to me seems like an absurdity.
I think much like in your morality, it depends on the context, right? I think that...
Yeah, I'll give you the context. The context is that 400 years earlier, the Amalekites fought a war against the Israelites as they were coming up out of Egypt. And then the Israelites beat them in the battle. And then God was like, okay, even though you beat them in the battle, we're going to wipe them off the face of the planet. And then he waits 400 years until the people responsible for attacking them were already all long gone. And then he's like, okay, now we're going to go kill their ancestors, or their descendants. We're going to go slaughter their descendants.
Why didn't he have them?
Generations.
Okay, why didn't he have them slaughter them sooner?
That's a good question.
Was there a reason? Was there a reason,
No.
or did he just wait arbitrarily?
Arbitrarily.
Okay, and so this is kind of where, again, because here's the thing, right? You're putting me in a place where I have to speak for God, right? And you're asking me, why did a supposedly all-knowing, all-powerful, omnipotent being do the things he did? And the answer to the honest answer is, I don't know. I can try and fish around to try and find maybe, this, that, and the third, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's totally fine, right? But I think that the position you're committed to just by your morality is you have to say that the slaughter of infants who didn't do anything is good.
I would have to say that the slaughter of Amalekites who had a war with somebody else earlier, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard or read somewhere that I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but I think that I would have to say that in this specific context, not that the slaughter of infants in all contexts are good, but I think in this specific context,
the genociding of infants is good.
It depends on how you would say good. I would say acceptable. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair. I won't play semantics. I'll say yes, sir.
I think that's great. I think that's an absurdity. I think that's like an incredible argument for why my morality is far preferable to yours, because my morality would never prescribe the genociding of infants.
Okay. Now, why is that?
Because it's unempathetic.
Why is it unempathetic?
Because if you were an infant, you wouldn't want to get slaughtered. Even the people doing the slaughtering, they themselves don't want to get slaughtered. No one wants to get slaughtered.
Okay, this is just a hypothetical. Are you a Marvel fan by chance?
No.
Dang. Well,
I'm a DC fan. I'm a hardcore DC fan.
Okay, well, this might fly over your head, but okay. Have you heard the baby Thanos problem where there's this one thing where they can go back in time and they can kill Thanos as a baby, knowing all the treacherous things he'll go on to do, but they're like, oh, it's a baby though, right? And so I guess the question becomes, if you can foresee the things that baby's going to go forth and do, is it then moral to kill that baby as a baby, or is it better to just not kill a baby?
I think that go for it.
I was going to say, no, there'd be a third option, right? This is where we'd use our empathy, right? Where we would go and we would find out why Thanos did what he did, right? He saw where his system got obliterated essentially because of global warming, and he thought what he was doing was just. So what we could do is either take him and just remove him from that situation altogether, or we could do things to educate his people to what's going to happen, right? There's other options other than just A or B.
Perhaps not. Perhaps not. I don't know if there are other options. I think that we can argue that there's other options, but I don't know the full plan. I don't know the full detail. Maybe the Amalekites are super resentful. Maybe they think they're entitled to that land. Don't we have like a war between Ukraine and Russia right now about people saying whose land does this belong to? I mean, I think maybe the Amalekites are really resentful over whose land this is, and maybe no matter what kind of brainwashing or teaching you do over enough generations or over enough time, they just decide, you know what, we're taking back Israel. This is ours.
Well,
And
in this scripture though, God tells Saul why he's doing it. He's like, because they attacked us 400 years ago.
I think that
I'm
it
not
like
familiar with
supersets.
this
I don't know. Unfortunately, the Bible like kind of supersets you up for failure, right? Because it doesn't. It leaves it like unambiguous why it's happening, and the reason why it's happening simply doesn't justify the punishment. You don't deserve to get slaughtered because your ancestors 400 years ago lost a battle. That's nonsense.
okay, let me ask you this, because I think we're also dealing with a modern day ethics or a modern day morality, and I think over time morality shifts and changes. But
Do
I
you?
think, yeah, for sure. At least people's perception of it. I think that
Oh, well,
I
yeah,
think
I
the thing,
agree.
yeah,
But
I think that's your vision of morality as we sit here today. If and you don't, and I don't mean this insultingly, but I mean if you were, if you were around 1,000 years ago and you're telling people about, they would probably think you're either a hippie or Jesus, right? They'd be like, "Who's this guy
yeah,
talking about?" No, we don't, like back then they stoned people to death. I
no,
mean,
I
even
agree.
as
I
much
agree
as
with you.
a couple
There's just
hundred
a
years ago we
small
had public
problem.
hangings.
The small
Uh-huh.
problem is that like this is God's command. Like it's not like some hippie giving the command, or right. It's not like the opposite. It's not like some like brutal Israelite giving the command. It's God. God gave the command
Why is that a problem?
because God's morality doesn't change presumably.
I don't
And if it
believe
does
that.
change, then it's like super subjective.
I think that the New Testament versus the Old Testament can even demonstrates that God does change to a degree or to an extent. I don't think God is some static being that just can never change his mind. I think God does change to an extent.
So
Now,
that's a big problem, right? Because there's literally there are verses in Malachi that says God does not change, and then there's a verse, I believe it's in Numbers, that says God does not change his mind.
well, I
Yeah.
mean, we would have to, and that's why when we start getting into quoting Bible verses, I think that I don't like the game of not that it's a game, not that it's a game,
Hmm.
but I don't like the thing of quoting Bible verses, because I think the Bible is something to be taken in and appreciated in its totality. If I took out any book and just started quoting specific lines from the book, then it's not really following the spirit of how the book is meant to be read. I don't think that even though some pastors do that, but I think that it's even an art to understand the context and the entire flow of the book in general. So I don't I can't if your thing is to say, well, these two Bible verses say God doesn't change,
Yeah.
but then at the same time we have the New Testament and the Old Testament where we literally see a change, but then Jesus says, I did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. So it's like we got to start taking all these different passages and within the running theme and running context. I can't just I cannot just respond to a single sentence by itself that says God doesn't change, and then ignore all the other
No.
parts of it where God is changing.
But
And
the
it
issue that
depends on
you're
what that
running
change
into,
means. Hmm.
But the issue that you're running into, right? So when we look at like Genesis 17, Exodus 12, Leviticus 23, Deuteronomy 4, Deuteronomy 7, Deuteronomy 11, Chronicles 16, Psalms 119, Ecclesiastes 12, Malachi 4, and going on to the New Testament, these all state the common theme in these is that God doesn't change and that his law is forever, right? His law is forever. But then we jump into the New Testament and suddenly, despite all these verses, God's law is changing. And again, this would just go onto our thing that we just have contradictions. The Bible's just full of contradictions.
But I've never seen somebody so close to the truth, but so far away. Look, if you're doing an honest reading right now, you could be being disingenuous. I don't think that's the case, though. I think you believe what you're saying. But if you're doing an honest reading, if you have one passage that's saying God does not change, and then you have the boldest, clearest examples of a change in how God is prescribing things or doing things, but then you have Jesus saying, I have not come to change the law, but to fulfill it, perhaps instead of just taking a superficial stance that it's a contradiction, we can go a little deeper and say, well, what did they mean by God does not change?
Yeah,
we have one passage saying he doesn't change. We have a provable change. But then even after the provable change, the person who's doing the changing is saying, I have not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Perhaps that is indicating that something deeper than just no change. I think that but that's why I don't like going into the verses, because it just,
Well, you don't like
we're speaking
going
different
into them
languages.
because words mean words.
Well,
Words
yeah.
mean words. Like you're quoting Matthew 5:17, but even then you're only quoting part of it. And this seems to be a thing that Christians like to do.
I'm quoting
First
it
he
from the
says,
top
"Do
of my
not
head.
think
I
that
don't
I have."
know the verses by
Yes,
heart verbatim. I don't have a computer in front of me where I can pull them up. I'm just off the top of my head. If you're critiquing me for not memorizing verses and passages, then now I don't know where we've landed. But I'm just quoting it
Well,
off the top of my head.
That's fair. And I apologize for that. But when we read it in its entirety, do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus isn't calling for like an ending of the law here. He's saying, look, until heaven and earth pass away, don't change the law, right? That's what he's saying here.
Yeah.
So again, when we go back to the old law, and we can see in like Mark 7, Jesus points to Torah. He says, quit following human tradition. Moses said to do this, do it. God said to do this, do it. It's not until Paul when we see like an abolition of the law. That's a Paul thing. But that goes back into the thing on morality. When God commands things, we ought follow them under your worldview, correct?
Now, I have to, before I respond, I just want to say I don't know if you are a well-read Bible scholar, or if you just have like and I don't mean this insultingly, but just literally, if you have an outline of just something that says here are quotes, here are contradictions, because depending on which one you are depends on how I'm gonna. Because if you're a well-read Bible scholar, then I would like to think that you probably already know my answer. But I think that, going back to what I said earlier, if you have a place where they're saying God does not change, and then you see somebody who comes in and says, they're changing things, and yet at the same time says, but I'm not really changing things, you can either look at that superficially as a contradiction, or you can say maybe there's a deeper message here that I'm just not getting to. And I feel like if you have the heart of a Christian, or if you're a believer, you're actually going to say maybe there's something deeper here that I'm not getting, and you're going to try and glean that out of that. But if you're not a believer, you don't feel the drive or the motivation to do that. And so you're just going to take it superficially and say, this is a contradiction, I'm done with it. But that's why we can't have a conversation, because we're literally two ships passing in the night. You're looking at something and you're just looking at the letter of the law, and you're saying, hey, this is a contradiction. That's it. Like, what else are we talking about? It's a contradiction. And I'm saying, technically it's a contradiction, but if you're looking at it literally word by word, line by line, it appears to be a contradiction. You have somebody saying no change, and then you have somebody who's supposedly bringing change. While at the
So
same
tell me
time,
then, so did God lie then when he said in the Old Testament that the law will be unchanged forever, is to be followed forever?
So if I can engage, I would say that it depends on what you mean change. It depends on what you mean
Become
law.
different.
You know it, and that's why I don't. Because of course you're gonna scoff at it, but
Well,
what else am I supposed
So
to
let's
say?
say if by change we mean like become different, then
Well,
would
not
God
not by
lie?
not in that sense. Like for instance, if I say, let me think of an example or an analogy. But if I say nobody eat the cookies, right, and then but
Well, let's keep it
then
to the law because God is all knowing and we as people are not. So let's keep it
mhm.
to the law of God.
Okay, which law specifically are you referring to?
Oh, yeah. So we can go take a look at, say, Deuteronomy, where he says, "And what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law?" Because he's about to give a law, and there's a previous law that he's given. So he's saying that there's no nation that has anything as righteous as this law, which I set before you this day.
Hmm.
Right? And then he goes on to say, so will be followed perpetually forever. He
So
goes
which?
on to
Mhm.
say, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were finished, and I was going to ask which law, but you're still going, so I'll wait. Sorry.
Oh no, this is him. So Deuteronomy is the last set of laws that God gave to Moses before they entered the promised land. As you know, Moses never entered the promised land. And so this is the last set of laws. And so what he's saying is, Moses, I have already given you some laws. I'm about to give you the last set of laws.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, mind you, Moses, that these laws are righteous. I challenge you to find me one nation that has more righteous laws.
Hmm.
So God is saying these laws are the most righteous in all of the land.
Hmm.
And then later on in Deuteronomy 11, he says that these therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God and keep his charges, statutes, his judgments, and all his commandments always. Right. And we
Hmm.
just have these throughout the entirety of the Torah, throughout the entirety of the Old Testament, where God says, keep the laws forever.
I'm saying which
Commanded to
laws? Which
1,000
laws?
generations. It's all the laws that are found within the prophets and the Torah. So it'd be
Give me one of
Exodus,
them.
Leviticus, Numbers. Huh?
Just get. Sorry, I think just give me a specific law. That way I can. Because I tried to give an example. You said I can't give an example. Stick to the law. So I'm trying to figure out. Can you throw me out a specific law that I can, use as an example? Give me a law. One of the laws you're saying. Okay, I get what you're saying. Where God has probably said a
Yeah,
lot
I'll
of
give
times
you a
throughout the
law.
Bible.
I'll give you a law. Yeah, I'll give you a law. So this is found in Deuteronomy 20. When you draw near a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you at forced labor. So God is quite literally commanding slavery.
Okay, and what does it say again? Can you read it for me?
Yeah, when you draw near a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you at forced labor.
That sounds pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. I'd have to pull up the passage and read it myself. I mean, personally, I don't know if. Hold on one second. Can I see your phone real quick? Thank you. You said this is Deuteronomy what?
20.
I'll
It's
just
going
do
to be the rules of warfare, and it'll start in verse 10.
Okay, the rules of warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what was the passage where he's talking about these are the laws, don't you dare change them?
Oh, yeah. Which one do you want? We've got a bunch of them. But we'll just look at, we'll go to Deuteronomy 4, 8 through 9.
Okay. Now, just a honest question, because I how far is this passage from the last, or I guess how far is this passage? Is he just giving a list of laws, or is he? It sounds like he is, because it starts off saying when you march up to attack a city. Okay, fair enough.
So the way Deuteronomy is written is broken down into like sections. Again, these are like the rules for warfare. But when
Hmm.
Moses is receiving them from God. It's like God sat Moses down and is giving him these laws, and he's breaking them down into these sections. But Moses is receiving these laws all at once. If that makes sense.
I think I understand.
So yeah, this is verse 20. And whenever God mentions the term when in the Bible, when is always understood that God knows they're going to be doing these things. So it says, when you draw near a town to fight against it, keep in mind they're about to enter the promised land, the land that they were promised. So they're about to enter the land that God had promised them. So when they draw near a town to fight against it, God already knows they're going to be drawing near these towns.
Now, let me ask you this: what should God have instructed them to do instead?
Fucking not slavery.
Yeah, probably talk to them, find out a way for peace.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that back in, I don't know what date this is, but a long freaking time ago, when you're going to war with the country, you should talk to them and try and make peace.
Yeah, or just leave their land alone and go find some empty land and leave their land alone.
Okay. Hey, I think it sounds like what you're saying, God probably messed up. But at the same time, I can be disingenuous. I don't want to be disingenuous, but I guess if I were to here's the problem. Whenever we start going into, and it's kind of what I mentioned earlier, you can look at it on a superficial level, or you can look at it on a deeper level. And if you look at it on a deeper level, and if you see it on a deeper level, the superficial issues don't really trouble you too much. But if you're not trying to engage it on a deeper level, the superficial issues, it actually feels like a win. It feels like you're making a strong point. And so if I was to look at this at this level, as I understand it, I do not think that, well, the first issue is whenever you come to, and this is the running theme I'm going to have when we start challenging the things God said and the things God did, whenever you are making the effort or the task of critiquing the actions and sayings of a supposedly, because you got to remember, I'm coming into this conversation with the idea and notion that God is timeless, immaterial, all-knowing, all omnipotent, all present. Yep. So when we come into the task, the arduous task of critiquing a being that is I don't even, if Richard Dawkins came down and said, hey guys, the Big Bang created the universe and X, Y, and Z, I'd probably kind of look at it with an eye, but I'd say, this is Richard Dawkins, he's probably right. But when we're critiquing an supposedly all-powerful, all-knowing, et cetera, it's a hard task for me to challenge. It's a hard task for me to engage with it because, again, I probably just don't know enough. But even if I did engage with it, my suspicion would be whatever I said in response to what you said would be met with a scoff, right? Now, again, you said, don't change, don't change, don't change. I have shown you the Son of God himself came in and said, he's bringing a little bit of change. But while he's saying that, he's saying there's no change. Perhaps that is speaking towards the fact that there may be a deeper nuance to this. Perhaps maybe the spirit of the law stays the same, but the application changes. Morality changes over time. Something that we're talking, this happened thousands of years ago, not even hundreds of years ago. There were public hangings and it was a spectacle. People would go out with popcorn and lollipops and watch criminals get hanged at the galley. Now you even see that, and it's like, it's got to be some kind of masochistic kind of, it's the worst people on earth do that kind of thing. So morality changes over time, sensibilities change over time, and I think that the fact that Jesus even exists is evidence of a changing in maybe the application of the law, but not the spirit of the law. So like when
Well,
God
so
says, "Thou shalt
the
not
Bible's
kill,"
like super contradictory, right? Like at that point, like
brother,
I
you
reject the Bible because it has contradictions and therefore there are falsehoods in it, which means that
but
I'm gonna be skeptical of all the claims, and there are
but
already
here's
claims that you should be like on face skeptical of because they claim like supernatural things.
and this is why I don't want to go down this path, because I would rather talk about things that I know we're not going to disagree on, right? Like, so for as when we come to reading the Bible verses, you're reading me a verse and you're like, "This is wrong, ain't it?" And I'm like, I don't think it's that wrong. I think I could think around it. And you're like, "Brother, it ain't no thinking around this one." And I'm like, "I think so." We're just never going to see eye to eye on how to interpret the
Yeah.
verses in the Bible.
Well, give
So
us
it's a
an
it's a
interpretation
futile
of this
effort.
that isn't crazy.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, I don't think it's crazy when Jesus comes. You're telling me the Bible says God never changes. We see Jesus come and bringing change.
Well, you see Jesus coming and bringing change. We don't.
Yeah, well, also, right, like that's just a contradiction, right? Like if it says this stuff will never change and then it changes, there's a contradiction.
Well, there's multiple different ways to approach it. Maybe you guys just haven't heard okay, I was speaking as if you guys had never heard somebody rebut these changes or these arguments, but let me just, in all candor, just kind of give you my impression of it. There's multiple ways to address these supposed inconsistencies in the Bible. First off, it depends on how you're envisioning the Bible. Is the Bible literally something that God came down himself and wrote, and he's the arbiter of every single word in there? Then you may have more grounds on what you're saying. If you're viewing the Bible as something, as what it really is, which it is the spirit of God condensed into a form understandable or perceivable by man, right? It's something men wrote these books, right? It may have been inspired by God, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about Luke, John, and et cetera, these are literally letters that were written by the prophets, right? And a lot of prophets wrote different letters, and people started reading these letters and appreciating these letters, and they used it to guide them in
Why
their
would
daily
God choose
lives.
such a bad method of communication? Like my
That
eternal
ain't,
soul is dependent on like some dudes who may or may not have been inspired by God.
brother. I don't think it's as big as a reach as you would suppose it is if you were
It
not
is, though.
being. That's what you say. You feel like it's a reach, right?
Yeah,
And I can tell you honestly,
if it says false things, I'm not going to believe it. That's not a crazy statement.
okay, well, that's like somebody saying, if for instance, oh my goodness, I'm actually an attorney, right? And there's something called sovereign citizens, which are people
Yep.
who they essentially they read the law, but they read it in the worst. They choose the laws to read. They'll come out and say, "Oh, you got $1 million when you're born. You have $1 million in a bank." And if they'll cite law to you, right? They'll cite law to you, and they'll say, "This law says that the bank cannot charge you a debt." And over here it says mortgage is a debt. Therefore, mortgages don't exist. It's all illegal. When you have an apartment complex, they're not. You don't have to pay them. They need to be paid. And here's the law that says it. And they'll cite law. But it's always interesting because when I read the law they're citing, I'm like, it's what the law said, but it's not what the law meant, right? And there's a difference between what the law is saying and what the law is meaning. And so as I'm engaging with it, I'm approaching this the same way in a way that like I can see what you guys are saying, and you're saying, hey, there's a contradiction here. That's a problem. And it's almost like talking to a sovereign citizen, where it's like, I see what you're saying, but you need to understand the deeper intent behind this. And the problem that you're going to have is that if you're committed to not understanding the deeper intent, we'll never reach a common ground. It's never going to
That's a
happen. It's a
fantastic
futile effort.
claim about like our psychological states, but unfortunately it doesn't rebut the argument, which is that if God's perfect, then he would have chosen like a perfect method to do this by, but clearly this
No,
method sucks, right? Like it's
so
confusing. We have no
the
idea what to think.
the premise there, that's your premise. You're saying if God is perfect, he would have chosen a perfect method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not true. That's not
Then he's
true.
wait. So would a better God choose a perfect method?
A better God wouldn't even believe. Let me not say a better God. But you can argue that a better God wouldn't even be putting you in a position to have faith.
Oh, perfect.
Why do I need
so
to believe?
then we can conclude that God's
why
not
not just
perfect.
reveal yourself?
Oh, easy.
No.
Then easy. So we can conclude that God doesn't exist because God is not perfect, because there exists a better possible God. Thus, we conclude that the definition of perfection is not met by your God. Thus, God doesn't exist.
You're listening. You're listening to respond, and you're not listening to appreciate what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the argument can be made that a better God wouldn't even leave it to belief or faith, right? If God's, or let me reword it, if God's true intentions was that everybody just believe in him, then he wouldn't even leave belief up to debate. He'd just come down and say, I'm God.
Yeah,
Problem
why
solved.
doesn't God do that? Yeah, why not?
That's the question. That's the question. When you start trying to answer that question honestly, then I think a lot of these problems you have start to become less of problems.
Yeah,
So,
well, just answer it. Why wouldn't God come down and reveal himself?
okay, so now this is me speculating, but I can say that based on the fact that God does not just come down and reveal himself, and again, this is all presupposing that I believe God exists. So this is my rationalization. But based on the fact that God does not just come down and reveal himself to us and end the debate, right? Just come down, do a podcast. The fact that he hasn't done that, to me, and to believers, is evidence that that is not necessarily his sole desire. That may not be his sole. That may not be the main thing he's trying to accomplish. Now,
so our eternal souls, whether or not we get tortured for it. Well, so first of all, two problems. One, you're saying that God is like limited, like he can't, for whatever reason, like do and give us this and also achieve his other goals. So that would imply that God's not all powerful.
I didn't say that.
Oh, gotcha. So what's
that's
the
not his
reason that
intent.
God doesn't? So what's the reason that God doesn't reveal himself?
I said the fact that he does not reveal himself should indicate that revealing himself is not the main priority, right? So if you just deconstruct things, brother, you're asking me what God's main priority. Do you see how facetious this conversation is turning into?
Well, no, because you're speaking for God,
buddy. Okay,
how can I speak?
We can do this. We can do this really easily.
I've been saying for the last 10 minutes.
Do you agree that the most good thing that is possible for a human is getting a relationship with God?
I would say yes.
Yeah, gotcha. So, and is it infinitely good to get a relationship with God?
Well, infinitely, yeah, sure. I would say yes.
Yeah, and is there anything else that's infinitely good?
When we're saying infinitely good, I would say yes. There are other things.
Yeah, what's another?
So
thing
I guess you're saying like the most
humans?
good thing. You're arguing like, is there anything better than getting a relationship with God?
Yeah.
I would argue it's possible. Yes.
Yeah. Which and what are the things that are better than getting a relationship with God?
I do not know, but what I would say is that the fact that God just didn't make us autonomous robots to just obey him blindly, or the fact that God has not revealed himself and has not like basically forced the issue on us, would imply that there is a greater good.
Can I have a relationship with someone if I don't know that they exist?
I guess. Well, I don't know.
You're not sure.
It depends on the question.
You're not sure whether or not I can have a relationship with someone if I don't know that they exist. You don't know.
It depends on what you mean by relationship.
Yeah, just like a two-way, like we're whatever it means to have a relationship with God, whatever that sense of relationship means. Can I have one of those if I don't know that the other person exists?
You're how do I want to put this? That's a hard question to answer, and I'll tell you what. Well, in fact, let me just I won't try to overthink it. I won't overthink it. I'll just say no, you can't have a relationship unless you know that God.
So then we would agree that it's not possible for me to have a relationship with God, that this perfect ultimate good can't be achieved.
So earlier you asked me, is there
Do you
another
agree or
possible?
disagree?
I disagree, obviously.
Oh, gotcha. Wait, so then let's just go through the premises again, right? So,
You didn't
can you
hear my
have a
response to one of the
relationship?
premises.
Can you have a relationship with someone if you don't know that they exist?
Uh, it depends on. It depends. Well,
On
I'll just
what?
say. Let me say no, because that's
Yeah.
because I was going to say a lot of Christians may not. A lot of Christians may not know. It depends on what you say. No, they exist. Like for instance, what do you mean by no? What do you mean by
Yeah, just
exist?
like I
Like,
have a belief which was arrived at via my reliable truth gathering processes.
well, I would say there's a lot of Christians that do not meet that criteria, but still have a relationship with God.
I just think that it's like a reductio, right? You think that you can have a relationship with people whose existence you don't even know of?
You're saying people,
Yeah.
right? God
Is
is not a
God
people.
personal?
Yeah, he's a personal
Yeah,
being, but he's
exactly.
not
Yeah,
a
so
person.
people, yeah.
Okay, well, God is a person then. Yeah, I'll meet him. This is disingenuous. Okay,
It's not
so here's
disingenuous, and you've been
okay.
disingenuous this entire time, and I'm impatient. I've grown impatient.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me answer your questions, right? The first thing you said is getting to know God the infinitely good thing, the infinitely good outcome? I said yes, but the problem is your framing. But that's fine. I'll say yes just because I see you're trying to. It's almost like when somebody says, "Can God create a rock so big he cannot lift
It's
it?
not like
If
that
he
at all.
can, then he's not. If he's, it's like it's a catch-22 where I either say getting to know God is not the important thing, or getting to know God is the only important thing, and there's no other option.
Just that it's the
And then
most
after,
important thing.
yeah, that's literally what I just said. It's either the most important thing or it's not the most important thing. Okay, well
Yeah.
let me. So then,
That is the dichotomy. Yeah, it is either one or the other.
okay, and when you asked me that question, I said no, and then you moved on to your next step in your dichotomy without even appreciating or responding to the fact that I said no. That's why I said you're not
Yeah.
listening to
Well,
what I
I
said.
asked you. Then what's the most important thing? You said, I don't know, and then we moved on.
You said, "What's the most important thing?" I said, "I do not know,"
Yeah,
but
exactly. And then
based
we
on
moved
the
on.
fact.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing: you guys are creating these. It's not a well. I won't make any. I won't say disingenuous or whatever, but essentially, you are looking at things without context and in a box, right?
Then give the
And you
context.
well, so the context, like I said earlier, but when I gave the context, you said I was going, "Ugh." But I said you asked me, is getting to know God infinitely good? I said
Yep.
it's certainly a good thing. I can't say whether or not it's infinitely good, but you didn't give me the chance to make that distinction. After that, you said, is there any other thing that is better than knowing God? I said, if knowing God was the end all be all purpose of our lives, and that's the most important thing ever, then God would be acting differently. God would have revealed himself to us. He would have removed the debate. So obviously, based on the facts around us, based on the information and evidence we have, I can say that getting to know God is certainly a good thing, but I don't believe it is the end all be all only thing that
Is there
matters.
anything better than heaven?
I I, I guess not. Probably
Cool.
not. Yeah,
Wait, so then
no.
heaven's the best thing, right? So then God's top priority would be getting the most people into heaven.
Then why wouldn't he just put everybody in heaven?
Yeah, exactly,
Like,
right? That's a
no,
contradiction
no,
on your
you're
view.
saying,
Yes.
hold on,
Yeah,
no, you're
precisely.
not, you're not,
Why wouldn't
you're
he?
not listening. You're not listening. You're not listening.
Why
Listen to
you
what I'm
asked a
saying.
question. Why wouldn't he?
No, the question is almost like a rhetorical question. You know what a rhetorical question is?
Yeah, I'm
A
aware, but
question that,
I'm posing it to you as a genuine question. Why wouldn't he?
yes, okay. So you're basically saying, Neil, I need you to come over here and understand everything God understands and speak on his behalf.
Okay. Well,
And
Neil, we can just get this done really quickly. So you're saying that God does things for higher reasons?
I'm saying God does things for reasons I may not understand.
Yeah, how do you know that God isn't deceiving you about everything in the Bible for reasons that you may not understand?
It's possible. I mean, I don't know. I
Oh,
don't. I
cool.
don't know.
Then how do you know that God isn't deceiving you about every single thing in reality for reasons you may not understand?
I don't know. That's possible.
So then you
How
don't
do I
know
know I'm even
anything.
alive?
At that point, you
program.
forfeited all knowledge claims. Like you literally don't know anything.
No, I could be a robot, right? You're asking me hypotheticals. How do I know I'm not a robot? How do I know I'm not a robot with the false programming and impression that I'm actually a real human
Exactly.
being?
You're getting it. You're understanding.
Yep. So you don't have
Okay,
any,
what is it that I'm understanding?
You don't have any knowledge claims, right? Like so there you go, right?
What is
Case
that?
defeated.
How do I not explain how I don't have knowledge claims?
Yeah, because you're forced to be agnostic as to whether or not God would deceive you about everything, which means you're agnostic to whether or not you're being deceived about everything, which means that for any claim, you're going to be agnostic on it.
So this is an interesting way to debate. So essentially what you're saying, that if you ask me, could God be doing something that I don't understand or I don't know? If my answer to that question is no, then essentially I have to speak for God. And if the answer to my question is yes, then I forfeit all God claims.
That is the dilemma that you're in, yes.
It's a false dilemma. It's a false dilemma.
In what way?
It's a false dilemma. It's a false dilemma created. That's like me saying, I can't even. I lack the energy, brother. It's fine, man. You guys got it. You've trumped me. This is taking up enough of my time, but
let's go.
I mean, I feel like if you guys were being genuine in what you were saying, you would appreciate the fact that your arguments are you'd appreciate the fact that your arguments are not I don't want to even say convincing. They're not even like truly plausible. This almost feels like, when you're back in high school and the guy's saying, "Oh, you believe in a spaghetti monster in the sky?" And it's just like, "Yeah, sure, dude." But I mean, I thought we were
the spaghetti
having
monster is more believable than God.
I know, sure.
I can see spaghetti.
I got you. This is a very good intellectual discussion. It's been fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you. Yeah, well, I
appreciate
you coming on.
It was nice. It was nice until it started going left on me. Honestly, like I felt
I agree, right? But unfortunately, it felt like we weren't really getting anywhere.
That's fair. Y'all got a show to do. All right, man.
I appreciate it. Hey, I'm probably gonna end stream. But I love all of you. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm sorry if we didn't get to you. I really am. We can only stream for so long, though. We're not God, right? We tire, except God also tires. That's a fun contradiction for you. But Kay, thank you so much for the $2 on YouTube Super Chat. Started off genuine, now I don't know. And Brandon, thank you so much for the $10. Hello again. I respect your pursuit of truth despite theistic disposition. And to my fellow Christians, be charitable and loving. To our non-Christian brethren, you need to better represent Christ. I agree. I think that's a good message. But other than that, thanks so much. Cyber, it was a lot of fun.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me up.
Yep. All right. See y'all later. Bye-bye. And then